What's up, everybody? Tonight's video, we're going to be breaking down and reacting to Nikolai Mew, the defendant's testimony here, his direct examination where he gets to explain his story from his point of view, what he saw, what he did, what he thought, what he felt, which is incredibly important in self-defense cases when people are being charged with homicides. But then we're going to watch the cross, and we're going to break down that cross-examination when he has to deal with a very different version of events that he told, coming from his mouth, using his own words against him, and how the prosecutors put that together and whether or not we think it hit or didn't hit. And there was also an incredible amount of objections by the defense lawyers. Were they trying to hide something? Were they trying to block certain questions? Did it work for them? All of that on tonight's videos. And of course, we're going to answer your questions. I can't wait to hear what you guys thought about this and where you think this trial is going now that the most important and last piece of evidence has gone before the jury, because there's nothing left now except for closing arguments. All right, yes, we are back for our second live of the day. And you guys are here to hang out. Buckle up, because this is not going to be a 1 hour stream. It would be impossible to listen to all of this in 1 hour. We're going to dive into it together. We're going to talk about where we're leaning. We're going to have agreements and disagreements in the chat respectfully and, showing grace to each other, even if we disagree. I definitely think there are multiple ways to look at this case. So I appreciate all you guys joining me. Make sure you hit that like button if you haven't already, and make sure you subscribe, because we've got more videos coming on this case. We got closing arguments. We've got the verdict, which we'll try to live stream live when the verdict is happening, break it down, why the jury came to the conclusion that they did. But tonight, we're talking about the defendant testifying. And I don't think anybody was really surprised that he testified, because in a self-defense case like this, it's very common for someone to have to come and explain themselves, especially when there is kind of a subjective part of this case. What did he think? What did he feel as a 50-something-year-old out of shape? And he says, basically decrepit, couldn't even run at the stage that he's in. We'll hear him explain all of that because of his heart surgery. And to me, it was very important for him to come and testify. But there was a little piece of me that thought he might not testify because of how bad his prior statement was. And the state played his prior statement full of lies, basically, that he admits himself. They are lies. And they use that big time in his cross. So we're going to hear it, even though we're not going to watch that entire video together of his prior statement that he made right after, before he knew there was a video. That's very important, because he's got a pretty good explanation for the story, but how is he going to deal with his own prior statements? We're going to start as the defense started in the day, with his direct examination, and they jump right to it, which I am very thankful for. Don't waste a lot of time. The whole jury's on pins and needles. Everybody watching and listening wants to know, what did he say happened? How did it happen? How did he feel? What was his vision and reaction time like in this altercation?
You're the exhibit number 104, if I could have the screen.
Yes.
I want to ask you about this exhibit, which says it's from frame 2592 at 149 into the video. Have you seen this before?
Yes.
Do you remember that time in your life when you were on the river in that position as shown in that photograph?
Yes.
Sometime after that, did something happen to you?
Yes.
Were you punched?
Not
Attacked?
before
sometime
that.
after this, were you
After
punched?
that, yes.
Okay. I want to talk about the time between this and the time that you get punched, okay?
Okay.
Exhibit number 104 there is on the, with it. Where are you on that?
I'm standing in front of two ladies.
In which, if you were going to just describe the symbol on exhibit 104 symbolizing you, which one is that?
The one with the M.
Okay. What color?
Do you want
Blue.
the Peter?
At that point in time, you said there's two people in front of you. Who are those two people in front of you?
A blonde lady to my left and the red hair lady to my right.
Were there other, does this accurately reflect how you remember roughly people in general around you?
Yes.
The blonde lady in front and the other woman, you understand now that through the trial that the blonde woman is named Madison Cohen?
Yes.
Do we use her name when possible?
Yes.
And the you said red-haired woman, her name's Riley Madison. Do we use her name when possible?
Yes.
Possible? So when Riley and Madison are standing in front of you at that point, just before you get punched, right? What are they doing?
They're yelling at me. At one point, they were pointing downriver and saying, "Go, go, get away."
What are they doing with their hands?
They're touching me.
When you say touching you, is that something gentle?
No, they're pushing. Madison, she pushed against my left shoulder. She pushed against my chest. She was pointing her finger right at my face. She was yelling at me, very close to my face.
This is a big part of the discussion. Who put their hands on who first? And he's testifying Madison put her hands on him. And he's going to explain what the physical altercation was between him and the woman who has been a big part of this trial. Did he start this whole thing by punching her, slapping her, whatever? And the state's going to really focus on, oh, well, you should never hit a woman. And I agree with that. But if the woman is the one starting the physical touching when there's 10, 12, 13 people around, I do think that that could change the context a little bit. Some people are asking where he's from. Romania, English is a second language. If you guys want to slow down the speed, you can click this gear button on the video that you're watching. My video, not this video. Obviously, you don't have the ability to click that. Die Hard says, easy to pick apart in hindsight. I agree. Once you have the video and you can slow it down, freeze frame. This happened pretty fast. I still lean not guilty, stayed overcharged. So what's interesting is they could still pick a lesser included. So even if the state overcharged, they could bring a second degree homicide or even a negligent or reckless homicide, which I think may be fitting better. Again, we'll talk about that later when we get a little closer to the time where we discuss the verdict.
Riley had one of her arms, I believe it was left hand, on my right arm, squeezing and pushing me back.
And when you just gave that description, you put your hands a distance apart. Can you show us that again? How far away were they?
About a foot.
Okay.
Less than a foot.
You've heard it described through trial as in your personal space. Would you agree with that?
Yes, right in my face, I would describe.
When that was happening, what did it sound like to you?
The volume was very, very high.
Let me ask you about how your body was responding in that moment when people are pushing you, poking at you, the volume is high. How's your heart? Could you tell us about what your heart rate was?
Oh, yeah. My heart rate was getting really high. My breathing was getting very high. I was...
how about your vision? Did you have normal vision in that moment?
No. At that moment, because of the situation, I was getting tunnel vision.
Can you describe what you mean by you saying tunnel vision?
I could see peripheral vision, but I could see center in right before my eyes.
How about hearing? Could you hear the noises?
I could hear the volume very high, but I couldn't understand what they're saying. The noise became garbled. I mean, the sound became garbled.
Did you feel threatened at that point?
Yes.
Did you have your knife in your right hand?
Yes.
What did you do with your left hand? Tell us what you did with your left hand.
Yeah, So with my left hand, I pushed her away from my face.
Can you show us what you did with your left hand? Why'd you do that?
So that's his explanation as to, was there a punch? Was there not a punch? He did this. And maybe in doing this, or actually did it with his left hand, he maybe hit her. And this is one of those situations where does he feel like he has to come up with an explanation? Is he trying to admit that he did hit her, but it wasn't a punch, it wasn't a slap, it was a defensive movement? Yes, he may have hit her, and it kind of fits in with a lot of the victim's testimony that they didn't see the punch or the slap, but they saw her kind of stumbling backwards, and that would fit with doing something like this. Rosie said, you skipped the entire part where Nick put the goggles in his mouth so he could grab the boy's legs. So pretty sure that's on cross. And again, we're going to play as much of it as we can. I've never promised to play every second of the trial on here. That would be impossible, but I think that's coming on cross. Joanne, that's what I am stuck on as a juror. He lies. And Joanne, I think that is huge. And I think jurors really, really stick on that stuff. I think jurors hate when criminal defendants lie, especially when they think they're trying to do it in their own interests. I think his own words are going to be the most difficult thing for him to get over, and we're going to watch the cross and how they're used against him. But I think many a juror has sat back there and be like, gosh, I just can't get over the fact that he even admitted he lied about the most important facts at the most important time before he knew he was on video. That is going to be difficult to get over. A lot of this, too, I see in the chat. Walk away, he was the adult. So I will just tell you, in self-defense law, legally speaking, even if some of these people were under 18, even if they're younger than he is, even if they're teenagers, 18, 19, 20 years old, they can still pose a threat to somebody physically where they would potentially, if the context is correct, respond with deadly force in self-defense. So the fact that they're kids or younger or even smaller doesn't mean they can't present that kind of threat. Klaj, yes, they can find him guilty of a lesser charge. Eric, Peter, what's up, brother? Appreciate all you do. Curious, if you were on the jury, which way would you be leaning after today? So I'm going to hold this. I said I was leaning not guilty prior to today, but I will say today has made that stance more difficult. We'll talk a little later about whether I've changed over to the other side. Welcome to all the new members, by the way. I see a bunch of people joining. That's awesome. Pumped to have you.
Was very close to my face. She was in my personal space. She had been there for a while, and I felt threatened.
Did you intend to harm her in some way?
No,
Did you try to harm her in some way?
absolutely not.
Do you know where, if at all, you had contact with her body when you raised your left hand in that manner?
No.
Do you think you had contact with her?
No.
I want to take us out of that space now for a second, okay, Nick?
Okay.
If I could have the screen again. You were here in court when we talked about, when we watched the video of you speaking with Brandy Hart, is that right?
Yes.
And I think you told her about your health condition. Can you just tell the jury now, what was your health like on July 30th of 2022?
It was very poor. Yeah.
I think you mentioned to her again,
This is really important context, that his health was poor, because it is how somebody in his situation would feel. There's objective and subjective standards to this. 224A says, brother, you're being slightly biased. The word bias is always funny to me because I don't think it's used in the proper context a lot on YouTube, especially these kind of videos. Her hand being on him doesn't classify as an act of physical harm or potential harm. That is actually law. Also, no stand your ground in Minnesota. So there's a couple things I'll disagree with. Number one, I believe this is in Wisconsin, not Minnesota. And number two, the act of touching somebody can rise to that level depending on other context. Now, if a lady just comes up to me and puts her hand on my shoulder, of course not. But if she starts shoving me while 12 of her friends, a lot of whom are male, are surrounding you, screaming at you, you could at least argue for self-defense. I'm not saying it's guaranteed. It's a question for the jury. And I'm not saying the jury's going to find that she did that. I'm just trying to show how he's explaining it from his position in a way that if you're going to take the stand in your own defense, you've got to explain the first altercation, the first physical contact. And that's how he's trying to explain it in a way that she was touching him first. He did this. Maybe he pushed her. Maybe he didn't. He didn't think he made contact with her. This is all his explanation that the jury is going to have to scrutinize.
quadruple bypass surgery before?
Yes, sir.
And when did you have that?
2020, about the same month. So about August.
Showing you here what's been marked as exhibit number 108. Can you tell us what those are pictures of, starting just on the left?
Yep, on the left, it's me right after the surgery, holding a red heart pillow against my surgery.
What was the purpose that you knew before that red heart pillow?
That was to protect my
And by the way, a little known, problem with stand your ground. Stand your ground doesn't mean you can't defend yourself, right? Stand your ground is a very different procedural thing. We have it in my state of Florida. It's not in Wisconsin either, I don't believe. So whether it's Michigan or Wisconsin, but I'm sure it's Wisconsin. But they don't have stand your ground there either, I don't think. But that doesn't mean he can't stand his ground. That's not what that means. If you're not a stand your ground state, it doesn't mean you can't stand your ground. It's procedurally different in the way that you can get immunity and the way that you can change things procedurally, usually, and arguments you can make. But he can still argue in self-defense, even in a not stand your ground state.
surgery from hits, bumps.
Was that something that the hospital provided? It looks like there's like almost a picture of heart and lungs on there.
It is. The hospital provided that.
And then the picture in the middle, what is that?
My first walk, my new life.
Did it take you some time to recover and be as active and mobile as you were before?
Oh, yeah.
Do you think you ever reached the same level of mobility and fitness that you were prior to the quadruple bypass?
Never.
What's the picture of you on the right there? You can tell us.
My baby.
Okay. Is that a dog?
Yeah.
Is that dog important to you?
My angel.
Okay. And that's the cushions helping you to enjoy time with her, but still keeping your chest safe.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You've had other surgeries in the past. Is that right?
Yes.
Did you have a hernia surgery?
2 hernia surgeries.
Have you had back surgery?
Yes.
And again, in general, would you consider your fitness on, if you were going to put it on a scale for July 30th, what would you consider your overall health and fitness on July 30th of 2022?
With my weight and very poor.
I want to ask you now about moving on to the Apple River on July 30th, okay?
Okay.
On that, this was a planned trip, is that right?
Yes.
Did you get a call from your friend Ernesto sometime before that trip?
Yes, sir.
What was that call about?
He wanted to remind me to bring my knife to cut string when we tie the tubes together.
Okay. When you say, do you have a pocket knife?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us about that pocket knife?
I own.
So before we talk about the pocket knife, there's no duty to retreat there either. That doesn't mean the state can't argue he should have left, things like that, but there's no like automatic duty to retreat, again, legally and procedurally speaking. FFS, agree you shouldn't hit a woman, but at what point when a woman is hitting you, can you legally hit back, not go overboard, but just to stop the woman when you're a man and can't retreat? It's supposed to be responding in appropriate force. Stephanie said, I slowed down the video and I hated it. You sound like you're drunk. Well, I can promise you that's not happening. Jerry Michael, I think this is something when defendants testify that they have to worry about. The jury knows they got to sit there and listen to everybody else testify before they got to come up there and get their story straight. All of these things are considered and discussed by lawyers and their clients before they testify. Art and Grace, wait, how long after the surgery was the incident? I missed the date. He looked fine in the video, not frail, but overweight. I believe it was about a year. The helpful stranger, personally don't mind, but thought it might be a perspective you hadn't thought about. No, I appreciate all the perspectives. If I'm snarky or I joke or I'm sarcastic with anybody, that's my humor. So I appreciate all the perspectives, disagreements. I love when people disagree with me. I love when they agree with me. Brings new perspective to the table and makes it enjoyable, I think, for everybody. The helpful stranger, sorry, I should have read this one first. They were out of order. Peter, get you to listen to things faster, but don't think you realize people who want to be live and be able to interact live lose the ability to adjust your speed the whole video because you like going faster. I get it. I don't have 5 hours to go through this stuff, so I really try to cram as much in content-wise to share with you guys and react to. I realize there's benefits and that risks and benefits, good and bad, to every decision that we make. This is where we've landed as a channel.
Owned it for about 10 years. I've had it a lot on me. I use it as basically a dual tool. I call it my Swiss Army knife, basically because I use it as a screwdriver. I cut insulation when I do electrical work. I use it pretty much everywhere.
Okay.
I'm an engineer. My tool.
Is it something that you've carried on your person? I didn't want to say all the time, but somewhat routinely?
Yeah, when I knew I was going to work on something or need it for something, yes.
Okay. Now I want to skip ahead again now to the river, okay? At some point, did Ariel lose his phone?
Yes, he did.
Did you go to look for that phone?
I volunteered to go look for it.
When you went to go look for that phone, what were you wearing?
Before that?
Nope, right when you left your group to go look for that phone, what were you wearing?
So I took my goggles, my snorkel, and my swimming trunks.
Did you have anything on your feet?
Yes, I had on my feet. I had a pair of really, really torn up sandals.
Okay, sorry, you guys are correcting me. 2 years. Thank you. 2 years after his surgery, I believe. July 2020 was the surgery.
Can I approach, Judge?
Yes.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 113. Is this a packet of 9 photos of your sandals?
Yes.
You've seen those?
Yes.
Does that accurately show the condition of the sandals that you have?
Yes.
Can you just move the admission of Exhibit 113?
The objection?
Yes.
All right, 113 is received.
These weren't taken by you, were they?
Pictures? No.
No, these were taken by the Sheriff's Department, correct?
Yes.
Permission to publish, Judge?
Yes.
And just because we're going to go through the PowerPoint, can I?
Yeah, just pass it to the jury.
Can you use your words? I know we have a picture that better does it, but just briefly describe the condition of those sandals.
Horrible.
Okay.
They were just coming apart. I couldn't walk on them unless I tried to mend them.
Okay.
As you can see, I used leftover string to mend them.
When you left wearing those sandals in your shorts, did you have your pocket knife with you?
Yes.
Where was it?
In my right pocket, clipped to my.
Did you have that there pretty much all day?
Yes.
You were here when we watched the video of your interview with Brandy Hart, is that right?
Yes.
That's the video full of basically lies and inaccuracies about what happened that day before he knew there was a video. And that's watching that today and then watching him testify afterwards. I didn't think this direct was horrible. But that's a struggle. That's definitely going to be a struggle. If I was on the jury, it's something I would talk about back there with all of you guys on the jury. Dave, I'm confused. I keep hearing that these were kids. I thought they were college students. Cheers. Honestly, people can call them kids all they want. I think that's strategic by the state. But there's the video. We saw him come testify. I don't want to fight 5 or 6 of them. Now, you give me my 8-year-old son, I could take 5 or 6 of him and his buddies, but not these guys. Not these guys. Gringa, Peter, if you feel like it, would like your take on the dog-related emotion on the stand. Strategic. Probably. I don't think it's bad if you show some emotion, show something he loves and cares about. Presentation wise, he didn't look like a jerk or somebody that was like looking for a fight or looking to hurt somebody, which I didn't love that kind of strategy from the state right off the jump. We'll talk about that when we get to the cross. But I think it's always good if your client can show some real emotion. It felt real to me on the stand. You don't want to press it. It's a fine line. It can backfire horribly.
You spoke with Brandy Hart. Were you truthful to her about the knife?
No, I lied about the knife.
Was that your?
Right there. Admitting that you lied about something as important as the knife in the video. I mean, he didn't just tell one lie about this knife. He said it wasn't his knife. He said the kids, the guys, the victims, the people that he fought with and said he defended himself had not one but two knives. And he took one of their knives to defend himself when they were trying to stab him with the knife. And he even stabbed one of them with their own hand holding the knife. Like big lies. He told big lies that were easily refutable once you see the video, and you have no choice but to say you lied. Which is why I thought there was actually a slight chance he might not testify. Because whenever you got to get up there and say, yeah, I'm a liar, but believe everything else I'm about to tell you, that's tough. That's tough. I don't care how good of a lawyer you are. That's really tough to overcome.
Knife?
Yes, it is. It was.
Did you bring it with you when you went to go look for the phone?
Yes, I did.
When you went to go look for the phone, did you have any intent to harm anybody?
No.
Why'd you go leave your group?
To go look for the phone.
Okay. At some point, did you have some contact with a group of teenagers?
Yes.
And you were here in court when we saw the 9-second video. Is that right?
Yes.
I want to show you just a couple of slides from that, if I could. Do you see those slides up there?
Yes.
Are those from that video?
Yes.
What are you doing in those 3 slides in general?
I was scanning the water looking for the phone.
And are you in that position? Are you walking upriver or downriver?
Upriver, away from that group of boys.
Did you hear them say some things to you
Yes.
prior to your walking upriver? And then did you hear those words that I have written on that slide?
Yes.
Prior to your hearing those words when you were walking upriver, had you had verbal contact with that group?
I think this is a good use of slides by the defense to put kind of where he was and that they're screaming at him and saying things like this. Now, again, the prosecution does a good job being like, you started walking away. Why didn't you just stay away? Because you didn't like what they were saying and you wanted to come back and handle it physically, right? Again, thinking you want to pick a fight with these kids is probably not something I am really buying, but did he take it overboard? That's a question.
I think so. They asked me what I was looking for, and I told them I'm looking for a phone, a lost phone.
Did you ever tell them that you were looking for little girls?
No.
Were you looking for little girls?
Absolutely not. It's pathetic.
When you, at the end of this, when you watch the video, at the end of the video, where I'm not going to play it, but do you remember what you did right there at the end?
At the end, I was walking away.
Did you eventually turn around and face in the direction of the group that was yelling at you and calling you a raper?
Yes.
When you,
Yes.
Let's get through the sidebars.
did you ever become in a position where you were looking at that group of teenagers that had yelled at you?
Yes.
What did you see when you were looking at that group of teenagers after the end of this video?
I saw one of them holding a phone in a bag, and I believed it was what I was looking for. So I turned around and I started approaching them.
Why did you approach them?
I wanted to get a closer look at the phone to see if it was the one that belonged to Aya.
Did you eventually get near them?
Yes, I started walking, then I rushed the pace, stumbled, and fell on my knees, held onto their tube, at which point I lost my goggle and snorkel kit in the water.
You saw
Again, not how he described it in the interview, but we're going to dig more into that on cross.
on the video, or excuse me, you saw during your interview with Brandy Hart that you said things different than what you just said now about what happened to your snorkel and goggles.
That's right.
Is that right?
Yes,
Is your memory sometimes different than what you see in the video?
yes.
Was your memory, in your memory, what happened to your goggles?
In my memory, the goggles got
Knocked away?
knocked away. Yeah. So got
One second. When there's an objection, just wait. Under answer. It is leading. Sustained. Next question, please. It's a leading question. Let's move on.
Is your memory perfect?
never.
Now that you've watched the video, do you realize that
Difference between misremembering or not remembering and lying. He already admitted he lied. So then try to couch it in a memory issue. That's tough, man. That's tough. It's tough.
You were wrong about that?
Yes.
What happened to your goggles?
My goggles fell in the water.
When they fell in the water, what did you do?
I started looking for them, searching right where they fell.
Oops, on already. Showing you here some slides, 220, 225, and 279. Can you tell us what you're doing?
I'm searching for the goggle kit.
And where are you in relation to the 6 teenagers' tubes? Are you on the side? Are you upriver? Are you downriver? Are you in some other position?
I'm upriver. So, yeah.
I'm going to then show you another group of slides, 575, 600, and 625. What does that show you doing?
All right, so what I did from that point, I went around the inner tubes to the other side, and I continued looking for the goggle and snorkel set.
Why did you walk around from the one side to get to the other side of the tubes?
Well, I thought that the water curtain.
Yeah, KGB, I think that's going to be a big one. That's going to be a big one. And Alyssa asks a similar question. Can what they do after be important, showing consciousness of guilt? If the jury finds that that's consciousness of guilt, then yes. If they find that even he didn't believe it was self-defense at the time and he concocted this defense with his lawyers, they can reject the claim of self-defense. If they find that the state did in fact prove this beyond a reasonable doubt. Paw printed heart. I'm not saying they weren't legally minors, right? But that still doesn't mean that you can't be in fear for your life if a bunch of 16 and 17-year-old boys are encircling you, punching you. Again, I'm not saying a jury has to find that in this case. I'm just saying there is a context in which a group of 16 or 17-year-old boys could create a fear of death or serious bodily harm.
Current would bring him over to the other side, and I was walking away from the boys at the same time.
Okay. During that time that you walked in that direction, did you have any physical contact with them?
No.
Were you confronting them?
No. Didn't say a word.
This next set of slides, what does this show you doing here?
I'm walking away from the group. Still,
Go ahead.
still looking for my goggles at that time.
When you were doing that, did you ever hear the kids say anything?
They gave me a warning.
What'd they say?
You got 10 seconds.
In response to that, what did you do?
Like, we're supposed to believe he remembers that. We're supposed to believe that he remembers that. It's wild to me that he remembers that they gave him 10 seconds. It's like a split-second statement. Now, we've heard his lawyers ask, like every witness, that. John, was he hit / attacked first? Well, he says he was. Everybody else says he hit the blonde girl, as they call her, first.
I ignored them, and I actually continued doing what I was doing.
Okay. I can show you the next set of slides here. Were you in a position to see here 963, 1140, and 1155, what the teenagers were doing behind you?
They were getting closer and closer to me. They were walking towards me.
Were you in a position to see that? Was that behind you, or had you turned around?
Well, I could hear their voices. I could hear that they were getting closer. At some point, I may have turned my head and witnessed that. They're coming towards me.
Showing you 1170, 1213, and 1284. What's happening here?
I'm at an angle to them, but I could say I have my back at them. Still standing in the water, and they were right behind me. They got that close. Within seconds, they were right behind me.
At some point, did you see other people from another group?
Yes.
What did you see?
I saw what it seemed to me at the time, adults coming over from the other side of the river.
And when you saw adults coming over from the other side of the river, what did you do?
I walked towards them. I walked towards this. The first one was was Madison.
When you walked towards Madison, where were the 6 teenage boys that had been yelling at you?
They were following me.
Okay. Were you in their path as you walked across the river towards Madison?
No,
Did they have as far as you know, did they have a clear path down the river if they wanted?
more than plenty.
Can I?
Again, bringing up the fact that they had a clear path. Also, to Chris's point, he had a clear path too. He could have left too. But Jen makes a good point. Everyone with the opinions, he was in inches of water, he should have walked away, etc. Have you ever been attacked by a group of younger people in the water, which changes your ability to fight back? Until you've been there, you can't. Except that the jury's going to have to do that in this case, right? And that's the interesting part about jury duty and jury service, is I agree with you. It's really hard to know how you'd react, which is why you have to build as lawyers. You have to recreate the scene objectively for what everybody was seeing and thinking and what a reasonable person would think, but also subjectively what a reasonable person in his position would see, think, and do. FFS, respond in appropriate force. Who actually decides what's appropriate? The jury, once you're charged, by the way, coming from Ball Harbor, Florida, it seems messy. It's definitely messy. It's not an easy case. But yes, the jury's going to decide today. I shouldn't say today. In this case, if he used appropriate force and if this was self-defense. But there are other lines of defense, as you can call them, or gatekeepers, law enforcement, the state attorney's office, judges who help in the process before somebody's arrested and charged, probable cause. Those types of things are all decided before we get here. So other people have looked at this and felt he did not use appropriate force. Die Hard said, can you explain how the state can add lesser charges after trial starts if added today, basically at the end of trial? So some states allow that. Seems unfair, but some states allow lesser included. Others don't. Others say you charge what you charge and that's what you live with. You better pick the right charge. I prefer that. Culper, everyone else who witnessed the event, including people who had no dog in the fight, claimed that Mew was the aggressor. Alex, I don't see a reason for them to change stance because of him not mentioning the push sub. All those teens lied for days during the testimony. A guilty verdict would be very disappointing. Pity Mom, I had triple bypass surgery a year ago this past January. Realizing everyone is different and recovers differently, if his health is as bad as he claims, why was he river rafting? Is that a fairly physical demanding activity? Interesting you would point this out, Pity Mom. I appreciate you sharing your perspective with us. And this is what's so cool is everybody brings different things to the table and can tell us like, hey, she had it a year ago. I guess his was 2 years ago. So that's a little bit different. I hope you're recovering well. But the state digs in to that exact question. So you're thinking like a prosecutor here to focus in and scrutinize some of the things he's saying. If he's using his frailness or being old and weak as a defense, they're going to also use it and say, were you really that old and weak and out of shape? And we're going to hear that. Thank you for the super chat.
Showing you this next group of photos. What's going on here?
So in this frame here, the first adult that came to me was Madison. She already had her finger pointing downriver and yelling at me and used some awkward words, ordering me to go down.
We see it looks like you're doing something with your right hand. Do you remember what are you doing with your right hand?
Yep, I was trying to explain to her what I'm looking for.
When you tried to explain to her what you were looking for, did you get the impression she was listening to you?
No, her voice was too loud to. Okay.
Hold on, wait a second. Sustained speculation.
I'm asking about his impression. So I'll rephrase. Did you get the impression that Madison Cohen was going to listen to your words?
No.
Why not?
Because she was too loud. She never stopped to give me a chance to talk. And she kept pointing and ordering me to go downriver.
We've all heard the tape, but just.
Did you feel like Madison was going to give you the opportunity to use your words? I mean, again, this is where the walk away comes into play, right? This is where the walk away comes into play, like Michelle said. First aggressor can't, but he's obviously not claiming he's the first aggressor. But there was like pauses, and they're going to get into that on cross, excruciating detail about, well, it could have stopped now. You could have walked away now easily. And the jury's going to have to determine this exact question. Debbie J. I feel like he was terrorized by the mob, but he should have walked away. And the fact that he lied has me thinking he is more guilty than not. So the fact that so many of you guys are talking about walking away and consciousness of guilt, that is likely to be something that the jury is going to talk about as well. So that's the point. That's what's so cool about, this channel and discussing this stuff in real time. You guys are prospective and potential jurors in the jurisdictions in which you live. So your questions, comments, and feelings, we're not going to agree always. Obviously, with 6,000 people in the chat, we're not all going to see it the same way. Hopefully, we've all hit the like button. But we're not all going to see this case the same way. We're going to discuss it. People are going to explain why they're at where they're at. That's what the jury's going to do in the jury room.
Was she using polite language?
Polite? No.
Did you hear anyone saying anything behind you when you walked over to Madison Cohen?
Yes, they're all calling me names.
Okay. Showing you the next set of slides here, 1776, 1840, and 1824. What are you doing here in this set of slides?
I'm turning my back towards Madison and the rest of the people.
Why did you turn your back to Madison and the rest of the people?
It felt to me like I couldn't have a conversation with her at that point. She was not listening, and I didn't want to interact any further.
Had you at that point found your snorkel or goggles?
No.
Had you at that point found the phone?
No.
Did you hear anybody saying anything while you stood there with their back to them?
Oh, yeah.
What did you hear?
We were still yelling, he's looking for little girls.
Were you looking for little girls?
Absolutely not.
When you heard them, did you consider that to be a lie?
Objection, Your Honor. Leading. Sustained.
I asked, did you consider that to be a lie? I don't
Yes,
think
of
that's-
course.
Please.
Don't think
I
that's legal.
sustain the objection. Please move on.
When you heard that, did you consider it to be truthful or did you consider it to be untrue?
Untrue.
And when you heard someone say an untruth about you, did that change how you were feeling?
I felt frustrated. I felt annoyed. They kept saying it over and over, so it annoyed me and frustrated me.
And when you heard them say this untruth about you, did it appear to you as if the other group that had come over agreed with what these the teenagers were yelling about you?
Objection, reading.
Sustained.
Did you think anybody in the other group was going to help you or listen to you when you were being called these names and accused of being a pedophile?
Objection, reading.
Sustained.
How did you feel?
Well, I felt overwhelmed at that point. I felt still annoyed, frustrated. I felt like she wasn't listening. She was the adult I thought I was going to reason with or get help from. She obviously didn't even attempt to reprimand the children from yelling.
Showing you another slide here. Some 1838, 1846, and 1865. Is that you?
Yes.
What are you doing?
Judge, can we go ahead?
Yes.
Another sidebar. I'm going to skip through this.
There's the
Alex, do you think the jury ages is a good thing for the defendant? Yes. So apparently it's an elderly jury, people in their 90s and 70s and 50s and people his age and older. Also, the teens lied for days. I don't think him not mentioning the shove is a stance changer. Honestly, a lot of memories faded in this case rather quickly. Melissa, confused as to why he was looking for the cell phone so far away from his group. If it went that far downstream, you're never going to find it. Seems like he was coming after the kids who had floated further downstream. So Melissa, my question would be, did you watch cross-examination? You probably did, because this is kind of a theory of the states. I agree with you. It's weird. Why was he over there? It doesn't really make a lot of sense. But you know what else doesn't make sense? This guy picking a fight with a bunch of teenage dudes. I don't get that either. That doesn't track either. Vicky with a Y said, at my age, I call 20-plus-year-olds kids. Yeah, I don't think there's any problem with that. Kelly, I would like to know who has watched the stills of the video and compare to the testimony. Both sides were wrong, but he lied and pretended he heard about it. Yeah, I mean, I think the stills, I don't want to say have been manipulated, but they've been used so much by both sides. I almost feel like the video could tell any story at this point, right? They're both trying to tell us what the video shows. But what I know about juries, they trust their own eyes and ears more than anything. So I hope they use the jury instructions on intentional homicide or second degree or unintentional, whatever they come down with, and self-defense, and they watch the video and listen to the video with their own eyes and ears. That's what I think they're going to do. Joanne, sorry, I just don't buy that he has memory loss, but remembers a threatening statement. That's tough for me too. It's tough for me too.
the group of people.
In the two photos there, which direction are you looking?
I'm looking downriver.
Okay. Are you looking at, there's two different groups, if I recall, from Exhibit 104. Is that right?
Yes.
One came from one side of the river and the other one's on the other side of the river.
Correct.
Where are you, in the photo on the upper left, are you looking at one particular group as opposed to another group?
Yes, I'm looking at the boys group
And why are you looking at the boys group?
because they were yelling at me.
And what were they yelling at you?
They were yelling things that were not true and pointing at me.
When this, after that happened, showing you the next group of slides, 1875, 1883, and 1889, do you remember what Madison did, if anything, to you?
Yeah.
What did she do?
She grabbed my right arm and she pulled me towards her and I lost my balance. So I moved towards her.
Did you consider that in that circumstance to be a gentle or a gracious touch?
No, that was not a gracious touch. No, not at all.
Had she been using any gentle or gracious words?
And again, they are using everything they can. Did you think that was a gracious touch? She grabbed my arm, fell me off, made me off balance. And again, it all adds to the fear and what he's going through, and they're trying to set the scene. The problem is early on, I think it's harder to set the scene. Later, when he gets shoved and hit and punched and encircled and grabbed and hit in the throat and whatever it is, sure. There's no doubt in my mind that's a recipe for self-defense, that he was absolutely in fear for his life. But if he started it and they were defending a third party, meaning these women that he, hit, pushed, whatever, that's where it becomes really difficult to just completely say self-defense, not guilty.
Words with you?
Not that I remember.
In those photos, can we see the footwear that you were wearing on that day?
Yep, those sandals that we saw earlier.
Did you have confidence in your footing in that area with those sandals?
Objection, reading.
Sustained.
How did you feel about your footing in that area?
Very unstable.
then why wear the sandals? Like the sandals argument is, again, like they're trying, if in case you're wondering, right? So what are the lawyers trying to do here? What's the purpose of this question, these set of questions? They are trying to create a scene where he's unstable, old, unhealthy, decrepit, post-surgery, scared, doesn't know what's going on, losing his bearings, losing his footing because of his bad sandals, didn't have his goggles. They're trying to create that, and they're using everything they can, including those sandals. But it's like, he chose to wear those sandals. He was able to navigate around the river all day. He was able to navigate back up and down the hills or however they walked to and from their cars. But yet we're supposed to believe that these sandals somehow made him more scared. I don't know. I mean, I think if a pair of shoes made me scared and unstable, I think I'd stop wearing them. Right? Am I crazy there?
I want to show you the next set of slides here. Do you remember what you say to Madison after she pulled on your right arm?
Yeah, I told her not to touch me
And why did you tell her that?
because she pulled on me without my invitation.
Did you say that in any particular tone?
No, not in a mean tone, but I made it sound so she could hear me. Don't touch me.
Okay. Why didn't you want her to touch you?
I didn't give her permission to do so
Sure, but why did you not want to give her permission to do so?
because she was one track mind. She just wanted to get me away from that, point me down river and tell me to go there.
What's your comfort level at this point?
On a scale from 1 to 10, comfort level is very low.
And again, they do a good job of explaining how it escalates and boils and gets scarier for him and things like that. I do like the way they set that up. Paw Printed Heart, his lies and memory loss during the prosecution's questions killed me. You remember when your team asked, but major memory loss when the other side asked, especially when they asked about that interview. That was just really rough for him. Culper, if he started the fight and then started losing and was genuinely afraid, does that give him the right to use lethal force? No. No. Jen, I'm a psychologist. Shock and PSD definitely causes memory loss, which is why SA cases are hard because victims have trouble remembering. I work with victims of SA. Trauma is trauma. Depends on your brain process if the defense should have had a psych testify. So yeah, we've seen this, and we've actually seen defense experts testify to like how quickly things happen, how your awareness changes and your perception changes when you're in these types of events.
Are you, if you had that same thing, a scale of like a fear scale, a 1 to 10 fear scale, right? And
Yeah.
so with 10 being the most fearful you've ever been in your life and 0, let's call 0 to 10 being the most safe you've ever felt.
Mhm.
Where are you at here on a fear scale?
In that particular,
Yeah.
about 1.
Okay. So you're more uncomfortable, but not necessarily afraid. Is that what I understand?
Correct.
At, where was your group in relation to you then?
Was upriver.
And did you do anything in order in relation to your group?
Yep.
What did you do?
I turned to them and I called them. I was trying to call them to come over and help me.
Are these slides, does this 2127, 2140, 2131, what does that show you doing?
I was waving at them and calling them to come over.
When you say you were calling them, did you do something physical or did you do something verbal or did you do both?
Physical.
Did you make any verbal comments at that point?
No.
Why not?
It was very loud. All around me was very loud. I don't think that anybody could have heard me 100 and some feet away.
With everybody else yelling, did you think your yelling was going to de-escalate or escalate the situation?
When everybody's raising their voice, I don't think having another raised voice would help the situation.
So Netwoman hits on this. Thank you for the large super chat, Netwoman. Where was the friend that owned the phone? Sad that he didn't just walk away over words. His words alone, he said that Madison told him to leave. It seems his ego played a part in refusing to walk away. He was over there for so long before he decided that he was in fear. And I also saw some other comments saying he didn't come there with any intent to hurt anybody. And I think that's 100% true. But where are the lines? The jury has to determine where the lines are. Did he think they're not going to say that to me and get away with it? I'm going to go get them. Did they start the altercation with him because they were bored and just wanted to mess with this old guy that was annoying them or bothering them? And then it turned into a self-defense situation. It's tough. He was over there for so long before he decided that he was in fear. Thank you for the night live. Yeah, I mean, the other thing, like where his friends were, he says he called to them and they couldn't hear him and he didn't want to keep screaming because that would escalate the situation even more. I don't know that type of stuff goes through people's heads, but maybe it does. But he does try to explain it because he knows, like you, people are going to have that question.
after you raised your hand to call for your friends, did you see Madison Cohn doing anything?
Oh yeah, she was looking towards her group, and then she waved to them to come over to her.
Is that what we're seeing here in 2261, 2262, and 2263? What do you see?
Yep, she is calling her group over.
Did you remember when she called her group over, did her group respond?
Yes.
Did they join that?
So Ashley, I'm not saying he's old like I think he's old. The defense is trying to portray him as a old, decrepit, sick, out of shape man. That's what they're trying to do. It's very common in self-defense cases.
Yes.
Showing you now these slides. Is that what you saw?
Yes.
I think we asked you questions before about Exhibit 104 with you with the blue dot and the other red dots. When you were, were you standing there with other people around you?
Yes.
When you were standing there in that moment with the other people around you after you've called your friends once, was that other group, did they appear to be afraid to you?
Afraid from me?
Afraid. Did they appear? When you look at them, do they look like they're in fear?
No, absolutely
What does it look like to you?
They're all laughing and enjoying themselves.
At whose expense?
At my expense.
And
Again, that kind of makes him look salty. Because somebody laughing and joking to you and being jerks, again, I don't condone that. Nobody should do that. It can escalate situations into this, but it usually doesn't rise to the level of creating a situation where you're in fear for your life and have to act in self-defense unless things start to get physical.
Speculation as to what these are. Sustained. Speculation as to what other people think. Next question.
how did you feel in that moment when they were around you saying those things? Did you think they wanted you to join in their laughter?
No,
Did you want to join in their laughter?
no, absolutely not. It was-
Where, if this fear scale is going, is it staying at 1 or is it moving in a particular direction?
It's creeping up.
Yeah, and Denise, I agree with this. I don't think the fact that he lied means it's not self-defense. I think it's very hard for jurors to get over, though. Bryce even says right here, he had a solid case until he lied. I still think self-defense 100%, but I feel his lies were out of shock of what happened, not realizing how bad it ended, potentially. But I think that you could be right in that the lie might flip some jurors or maybe the whole jury. I do think that the age of the jurors really helps him. Lori says, I can't get over all the lies and concocted stories he told from the moment he saw law enforcement. It makes him even more guilty. It's definitely not a good look, and your own words are always the worst evidence against you.
Showing you another set of slides here, 2328, 2311, 2382. Do you remember, what do you remember about that?
I remember the young boys were yelling, pointing at me, saying things that are not true.
Were you able to see, like in this next slide, this 2429, 2440, 2401, were you able to see as you stood there what everybody was doing? Were you able to scan and see that?
For a brief second, yes.
Okay.
They were very close. They were really close to me. I could see and hear them.
How about your fear scale there? Where is it? Where is it?
About 2 or 3.
I see in the one on the right there, you have your hand someplace. Can you tell me what you're doing with your right hand?
Yes, I'm reaching for my pocket knife.
Why?
Because at one point my fear was getting really high. And
Okay.
So again, these pictures do depict the escalation for sure. And I think that's the really good argument here for self-defense. Now, him reaching for his pocket knife, they're saying it proves, he's in fear. I thought that was one of the best parts of the state's cross when they point to multiple times, much earlier on than this, that he starts fidgeting, making sure he has his knife in his pocket. Bryce thinks the state's frame by frame is so unfair. No way anyone had that amount of time to decide. I agree. When you play it full time, it looks like this guy, and even, one of the witnesses said, I think it was Owen, that everybody jumped on him and was beating on him. That's tough. Brian, do you think the jury picks up on the nuanced language? I feel like the attorneys use the language to manipulate the jury without getting called out. Sometimes I think they do pick up on it. Sometimes I think they don't. Sometimes I wouldn't call it manipulation. I would call it appropriate language and the appropriate words to use. But sometimes I do think they're trying to twist things. Jenny, my issue is that I absolutely do not think Madison was punched. Well, that creates a much different scenario, right? You've got that. These are the decisions the jury has to make. Who was the initial aggressor? What happened? Was there initial punch? Was there an initial pull by the girls that started it? Then these guys encircle him. He clearly gets pushed in the water, hit in the back of the head. And a lot of the actual stabbings were when people were coming at him. There's a lot here for a self-defense case. But as in most situations, his own statements really, really made this more difficult on his lawyers. If he would have said nothing, I think he'd be in better shape. Alyssa, if he was the first aggressor, does that mean everyone else has the right to get involved or just the person being assaulted can defend themselves? So I will tell you, in response, they can only respond in defense of a third party in appropriate force. So if he just pushed her, they can't respond and beat the crap out of him and kill him. But if he punched her in the face, that could potentially be enough for lethal force and a response. So, I mean, these are all the nuanced questions you're figuring out, Alyssa. I can see you working through it, that the jury is going to have to work through to make this difficult and very, very important decision.
I was getting ready to pull it out.
Do you remember, other than what you talked about, Madison pulling you, which we saw, do you remember anybody else touching, pushing, grabbing you in any way?
The two ladies, yeah.
Showing you here what's 2472, 2478, 2481. Do you remember what's happening in those photos?
Yes. This one, the lady on my right side, she grabbed my arm and she was pushing against my arm.
And did that increase your level of comfort or increase your level of fear or something different?
So it decreased my level, the level of comfort, and increased my my fear.
Do you know?
I think both sides were freeze framing this to use it for their benefit. But there was definitely a lot of people touching him. And when you're by yourself and there's 13 other people, I can understand why this would be unnerving, even if it's a female and she weighs much less than you.
Oh, do you remember at some point, do you take your knife out of your pocket?
Yes, I do.
Do you know when that is in relation to these slides? Do you have a memory exactly of when that is?
Not exactly, but when they were pushing and poking at me, I remember I pulled it out then.
Okay. Do you remember, did you have it out before you were punched or after you were punched?
Before I was punched.
Okay. Showing
He had his knife out before he was punched, which I thought was interesting as well. Because he kind of knows something's coming, maybe.
you another set of slides here. It looks like do you remember doing something with your left hand?
Yeah, at that moment, I really needed my people to come over and help me. So I was trying to get their attention.
One more slide here. Do you, what's happening here in the slide?
Madison is pushing on my left shoulder and basically yelling at me right in my face.
And then on the next slide, we see something in your hand. Is that right?
That's a knife.
Why'd you take out your knife at that point?
I was beginning to be afraid.
And what was it about that moment where everybody is that made you so fearful that you took out your knife?
I was surrounded. They were yelling. They had just pushed me. Well, the lady, they squeezed my arm. I mean, it seemed like they were not backing away.
Previously, you turned around. Is that right?
Yes.
Did you feel comfortable?
The tag, this is kind of an interesting opinion. You feel like both sides are shady and lying. So you looked at the videos and pics and they don't lie. I agree. And I think that's what the jury will do. I don't agree people were lying, but I definitely think when they figured out what the legal arguments were going to be, they fit and made their testimony fit into what they needed to say and testify to on both sides. I did feel some of that. Nuke, that was very interesting to find out, right? That one of the Rittenhouse lawyers is also one of his lawyers. Sarah said, I have complex PTSD and have few memories, but those I have are very specific and detailed. I believe he can remember some moments key to him. And then even more, obviously, if there's a video, right? It's a lot easier to remember some of those moments. The helpful stranger think something that might really cause issues with the jury is his pulling out and opening a deadly weapon before things became physical in any way, which is exactly what he's testifying to here.
Well, turning around in this situation?
No.
Why not?
They're too close to me.
What happened the last time that you turned around?
So he's saying, why didn't you turn around and walk away? He said, they're too close to me. Well, last time you turned around and walked away.
Nothing good.
Judge, this
Good place to break.
may as well be.
All right, it's 12 noon. Let's break for lunch. You'll be taken downstairs to the assembly room again. Please, this trial.
Begun the morning on, and so I want to start from there again and then move forward from there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
When I'd asked you before, you talked about how you felt, but since that time, you've told the jury that you had this fear scale. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask you about at this time, what we see here, what you previously described the scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
How were you feeling on the fear scale?
About a 6, 7.
Okay. And at some point, I think you told them before, but just so we can put it into the context here, did you do something in response to something that was done to you when you're standing there in this moment?
Yes. After I was pushed, and both sides, I would say, squeezed. I was afraid, so I pulled out my knife.
Okay. Did you do something with your left hand at some point?
Yes, I did.
What'd you do with your left hand?
I pushed her away. I
When you
pushed
say-
Madison.
Push Madison away. Was the purpose in that to have contact with her and to get her back up?
Yes.
Did you have a purpose to cause her pain?
No.
Were you trying to hurt her?
No.
What were you trying to do?
I was trying to push her away from my space. She was right in my space, in my face.
Why didn't you just back up?
Couldn't back up at that moment.
Okay. When you say you couldn't back up, why not?
I
Because
would've-
you felt uncomfortable, or were you?
Objection.
Because I would have had
Wait. There's an objection. Sustained on leading. Next question.
Was
And
done.
he does lead a lot. Defense attorneys lead a lot because the vast majority of their witnesses, they're cross-examining, so they're allowed to lead. And they do object to it a lot. They confirm it, but the defense attorney finds a way to say the answer out loud so that the defendant can repeat it back to him, a very common strategy and way that lawyers do this. And you'll hear that throughout this.
Were you uncomfortable, or was there a wall behind you, or was there some other reason? Why did you feel like you couldn't back up?
I didn't feel safe turning my back on those people.
Okay. How about just taking a step backwards?
Well, I was standing my ground. I didn't move towards anybody.
Okay.
They were coming at me.
When you raised your left hand and you did that, do you recall when you pushed her away having contact with her?
I may have, yes.
Okay. Do you remember in particular where, if at all, you touched her?
No.
Okay. Would it surprise you if you touched her?
No,
Was that, in fact, your purpose in pushing her away?
absolutely.
Okay.
She was in my space.
I want to move forward here. And you can turn the slide off, I guess. After you did that, right? Did something happen to you?
Yeah,
Did people do something to you?
yeah.
What was done to you?
Yeah, almost right away I got punched and fell in
And
water
where did you get punched?
on my face, on my side of the head.
Now, you've had a chance to watch this video, correct?
Yes,
Have you had a chance to see these 4,800 slides?
yes.
Prior to seeing that, did you remember everything?
No,
Have the video or the slides help you to refresh your memory in some way?
a lot.
And again, I think that's a good set of answers and sounds really good. And I think, again, the direct went pretty good. Cross is tough. And Ted asked, Peter, would you put him on the stand if you were his lawyer? Watching the cross, I might have second thoughts. Originally, I probably would have. He's got to explain himself, what he thinks, what he feels about his physical state and mental state at the time. I think all of that was really important. So I'm torn on it. I think I would put him on the stand, even though I think Cross may have sunk the case for him. But with no testimony and all they hear is that interview of pure lies, I think you're kind of already stuck with that in this case. Alex, I still think not guilty, but he shouldn't have testified. Do you think it was his choice, or did the lawyer ask him? I think it was his choice. Usually the lawyers will give their opinion, but ultimately it's the client's choice. Jen, he should have walked away. How would he know they would attack him? So it's justified if they attack him because he didn't move, but not okay that he responded. A good discussion if we're on the jury together. It's always a very interesting way that people look at this differently. And again, some people see it as an easy thing to walk away. Some people think impossible. They're going to attack him. Now it depends. Did any of the boys actually attack him or do anything to him before the altercation with Madison? The helpful stranger pushed hard enough to knock her glasses off. Again, there were some people in the chat that say, I don't think she even ever got hit. So I think that would be something we'd have to. It sounds like in this case, it's tough because so many people's memories faded. Nobody was exactly in line with the video. Again, it's hard. It was a traumatic event. Nobody has a perfect recollection of anything. And when you have a video, it's easy to call somebody a liar or pick apart something they said that wasn't true. Very, very difficult. Miraculous Hufflepuff. Was it said if the boys actually had the phone? I think the answer to that was no, they never found the phone. Peggy, I thought the video showed him running towards the boys as if to confront them. Also, if I saw a group of teens yelling at me coming closer, I would have been out of there. I agree with you there, but I think you are basically seeing it the same way as the prosecutor, because I think that's how they kind of early on in Cross, they get to the fact that they think he was darting towards the boys, not away from them like he should have.
Have you remembered everything because you've seen that?
Not everything, no.
Okay. Do you remember something different than what you see in the video?
No.
You don't remember any of the things different that you see in the video? Like you talked about the goggles.
Objection leading.
He's like, you sure? Let me tell you, you do remember things differently. So then he figures it out and picks up his answers. But the prosecutor's right there to object to leading. Prosecutor objected appropriately, I think, throughout. The defense objects a lot in Cross.
Overruled. Just trying to reorient the witness to a place where examination can continue.
Are there some times when your memory is different from what the video is?
Yes, of course.
Now, this series that I want to show you is about things that were done to you, okay?
Yes.
Do you have a specific memory about everything that was done to you?
No.
Do you have a specific memory about everything that you did in response to what was done to you?
No.
Do you have a memory about how you felt in those moments?
I would say yes, I do.
Do you have a memory of what you believed in those moments based upon those feelings?
Of course.
So I want to show you the slide here. Again, this is slide 2661, 2662, and 2681. That's fine. Do you remember how you felt when you fell back into the water?
I was, number one, I was stunned. That's why I fell backwards. I was very afraid, of course.
On this fear scale that you've talked about before, where are you on that scale from 0 to 10?
Right at the top, 10.
Have you ever been at that 10 before in your life?
Never been in a situation like this or a fight in my life.
Have you ever been at a 10?
Never.
When you did that, as we see on the right, what happened to your head?
Oh, well, I fell in the water. Obviously, that's a river, and I hit my head on river rock, and my whole body went under. Well,
Okay.
my head went underwater.
When you say your head went under, is that what it felt like?
Yes,
Did you feel water come over your face?
over my
Objection.
entire body.
Hold on,
Yes.
hold on. What's the objection?
Bleeding.
Sustained.
Where did you feel?
So I see a lot of people asking for a poll. We will do a poll after direct and see where you guys are leaning, guilty, not guilty, or hung, or undecided. And then we'll do another poll after cross to see if your opinion has changed. And again, tons of new members. Welcome, Alyssa, and everybody else that has joined today. And thank you to everybody gifting memberships as well. Love adding new people to the membership crew. It's always a good time in there.
Feel the water on your body?
Over my face, my mouth.
Okay.
I felt like I was submerged in water at the moment.
Did you try to get up?
Yes,
Why did you want to get up? Why didn't you just lay down there peacefully in the water?
to drown. No, I wouldn't want to do that. I wanted to get up out of the water.
At that moment when you're down in the water, had anybody like AJ Martin come up to you and said, just lay there and rest?
Somebody came from behind. Yes, I found out later who he was and pushed me down and to keep me in the water.
Before that, when you tried to get up, do you remember feeling anything before that? Did you told them,
Yeah.
did you feel anything to any part of your head?
Yes, of course.
What'd you feel?
Felt punched in the head.
Showing you the next slides. Is that 2701, 2705, 2706? What's happening to you there?
I'm getting hit on the head.
How many times at that point, is your memory of watching the video and your memory of experiencing this, have you been hit in the head now, but either by people or by the ground or by the water?
4 times at least.
At this point in time, where's your fear scale?
A 10.
When this happened to you, did you immediately get up or did you fall back in the water or did something else happen?
I tried getting up, but I couldn't.
Did you,
I do buy that his fear scale is pretty high at this point, right? And now is when the lethal response starts happening. The question is, did he get himself into this situation? That's what the jury's going to have to determine. And the defense is really trying to set up that all of this exploded and there was nothing else he could do except to defend himself because it was his life or theirs.
at some point, did you feel something on your backside?
There was somebody pushing me down.
And when you felt that on your backside, did you feel anything else anywhere else?
I got hit in the face in the front of my head.
And is that exhibit here, 2147, do you see that hand through the underarm there?
Yes,
Do you remember getting hit in the head there?
yes.
Was that a gentle hit?
No.
When you're getting hit in the head here again, where are you at on the fear scale at that point?
10.
Have you been able to get up out of the water?
No.
How many people?
Totally reasonable. Now, this is where it starts. If this is where the video started, I think it's 100% an easy self-defense. The question is, what do you believe about the Madison punch? And Culper asked, did Madison testify she was punched? I think she testified off camera. I didn't see it if she testified in front of camera. I don't think she did. But my guess is she said yes, as most of the victims did. Ben, were you surprised the defense attorney is not bringing up the language culture differences more? I think that explains some of his odd behavior. It's always interesting when defense attorneys don't do something that seems obvious or seems like something you would do. My guess is they thought about it and it was an intentional decision not to. I don't know why. Maybe the client didn't want to. Maybe they felt like it didn't come across the way that they thought it would. But it is always interesting to think about things like that. Gabby said, inclined to believe the punch did happen because of the contemporaneous evidence. Teens on video shouting, never hit a woman, and Maddie on body cam saying it too. And again, that's why the video is always the most important. For the jurors, how much impact does seeing the victim's scars hold, in your opinion? A lot. A lot. I think the trauma and the sadness and how horrible the outcome of this was is really going to weigh a lot on them. Kate, Peter, can the jury ask to see the whole video from beginning to end? So not during the trial, but when they're deliberating, it's a piece of evidence. They can watch the whole thing back there as many times. They can slow it down, rewind it, pause it as many times as they want to. They're in control. Melissa said, it's shocking to me that there was no remorse. I think if the average person unintentionally killed a 17-year-old, even under duress, they would feel some remorse that things got so out of hand. 100% agree. What I will say is, including what we watched in the Crumbley's sentencing today, it's hard for people not to revolve their world around themselves. And they think something's happening to them and they're wrongfully charged and this is an injustice and, they don't care about anything else. And sometimes that consumes them. Timberwolf, I watched the video from the time he left the tubes down the river till the time it's Madison was hit. It was close to 70 seconds, plenty of time to walk away, even when people tell him to do so.
People, do you know how many people are attacking you?
At the time, I didn't know, but I knew there were more than I could handle.
Did it feel like it was, how many people did it feel like?
Like 10.
Okay. You've seen the video and you responded at some point, is that right?
Yes.
And you used your knife in response.
Yes.
Why did you use your knife?
I feared for my life.
Did you think you could get out of there without using your knife?
I couldn't even get up. They're pushing me down. No, so the answer is no.
I mean, that's a pretty scary picture, right? Like, I don't care the age or who or male or female, whoever's doing this to me that I don't know and was just yelling at me and stuff, I'm in fear for my life. So whether he was in fear for his life and acting in self-defense at this point, I don't think is a big question. The question really is, did he start all of this? Was he the initial aggressor? And did he keep it going or escalate it? That's the real question here, in my opinion.
In that time when you're down on the ground, did you think there was a way for you to escape?
No,
Did you feel like you could just crawl away or run away or walk away or do anything else to escape?
not in that position.
The next day after this, July 31st, were you in the, did you feel, how did your body feel the next day?
I hurt everywhere. My head hurt. My throat hurt.
And that's tough because that's not what he told the officer or even the nurse. He's going to overly exaggerate it. And again, if you want to say you're old and you want to say you're decrepit and you want to say you were scared, fine. You have the bypass surgery, 2 years prior, fine. But to say stuff like this when you had the opportunity to claim it and you didn't, again, goes back to what Debbie's talking about. He seems to have selective memory. That makes me question his honesty. Will the jury feel the same way? I think they're definitely going to scrutinize the testimony. We've heard a lot of juror interviews post-trial, and if the defendant testifies, it's always the most important thing. And most of the cases we've watched together, it hasn't gone well. Rittenhouse is one of the exceptions that it did go well for him, and he ends up with a not guilty. But a lot of these defendants end up sinking themselves when they testify.
Obviously, my back hurt. I hurt everywhere.
You said your throat hurt. Is that something you remembered that day before when you were speaking with Brandy Hart?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Did you mention it to Brandy Hart?
I don't remember.
So it's something you remembered but didn't mention. Again, that just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, like Debbie is saying here in the comment.
Did you see anything when you felt the pain about your throat? Did you see anything that refreshed your memory about what caused that pain to your throat?
After watching the video, yes.
Okay. What happened?
I got hit in the throat.
Do you remember that now?
Yes.
If I can. Showing you the slides 2993, 2994, and 2997. Is that you?
Yes.
What's happening to you there?
Somebody is going for my throat, squeezing my throat.
Do you remember how that felt?
I felt pain. I couldn't breathe. Scared, afraid.
I'm showing you the next set of slides here, 2998, 99, and 3000. What did you think was going to happen to you in that moment?
The whole time I felt like I was going to die. So basically I feared for my life.
And in response to that, here's slide 3000. Did you do something in response to that?
I reached out and stabbed him.
When you used your knife,
Again, that looks like a picture of self-defense, right? I mean, that looks like a picture of self-defense. Correct me if I'm wrong. You guys tell me. If we're just looking at that picture with no context, there is still a lot here for the defense to work with. But there's a lot of other context that the jury has to consider. Some questions about this that I think are interesting. Mara said, no one saw Mew holding the knife, but if they had, would it change anything? Could they respond and try to disarm him or fight him because he held a knife? Again, they were saying they were in fear. Maybe they were responding. Who was the aggressor? If they thought he was coming after them with a knife, absolutely they could respond with deadly force. Michelle said, what if he initially took out the knife to warn? He didn't say that, right? And Paula asked, like he is hiding the knife. Why not show it to deter the kids? So all self-defense experts, cops, combat people, which I am not one or an expert on, say that that's the wrong thing to do, especially in a group of 10 or 12 people, because now you're really setting it up that if you're trying to warn them with a knife, they could easily take the knife and turn it on you like other people have already asked about.
again, this is open-ended. You can ask it any way you want. Were you trying to kill somebody?
Absolutely not.
What were you trying to do?
I was just trying to defend myself.
After this was, again, we've seen the video, you talked to Investigator Hart. So I want to ask you a little bit about that for a moment. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So now we're going to get into your very inconsistent statement and see how he's going to answer that. So Karen, yes, both sides were drinking. Confirmed, though, that the victims group was drinking a lot more, and I think they admitted also smoking marijuana, at least some of them. Shay said, I mean, it's difficult to hear the defendant call the victims by their first names. He's been asked to multiple times. So I don't know if that makes it any better or worse, but it's part of the procedure here that they're going with. Fox RN, he clearly has training with that weapon, 5 torso wounds, well placed and thought out. How can he testify that they were drunk, young, and you weren't, and you didn't just leave? It's a good point, right? Not being drunk, being sober-minded, more likely you'd make the right decision and leave, but not the case here.
Do you independently, well, let me say, you've watched the video here in court, correct?
Yes.
And you watched the video prior to that. We've watched it together, right?
Yes.
Does watching that video refresh your memory? Do you have an independent memory of that conversation with Investigator Hart?
No.
Do you remember what it is you said other than seeing things on the video?
Other than I lied about the knife. That's what I remember, afterward. Yeah, I lied about the knife.
Do you remember actually saying
The thing he remembers is that he lied about the knife.
that in that moment, or you just remember seeing that and that's what you remember seeing?
I remember seeing it in the video.
Okay. Do you remember how you were feeling during that time at all? Do you have any memory about that?
Not much.
Just one other thing out of the timeline here. Since that time, we've heard testimony, you have a twin brother.
Yes.
Is he here in the courtroom?
Yes.
Objection relevance, Your Honor. Overruled. You may continue.
During this time, have you had conversations with your twin brother?
Yes.
Do you consider there to be anybody that you're really, maybe your wife, anybody you're closer to than your twin brother?
No.
You and your twin brother, when you speak, what language do you speak in?
Romanian.
Why do you speak in Romanian with your twin brother?
Here they hit some of the cultural language differences, but again, not a ton like somebody else asked. Paul Printed Heart, is it just me or does his lawyer keep giving him the answers and the questions? The 16, 17-year-old was why they called them kids. That's all. Yeah, definitely a lot of leading questions here. No doubt about that.
It's the easiest way to find words to describe what we're thinking.
Okay. Is that where you grew up?
So again, he brings it up in the context of the interview with the cop that was very inconsistent to what he talks about today and with the video.
That's the first language.
Are there times when you've spoke with your brother that you've talked about this, what happened to you on the river?
Yes.
Is your memory about what you did or what was done to you, is it any better when you talk to your brother than it is when you talk about other times?
No.
Are you always getting it right?
No.
How about your feelings? Your memory about your feelings?
Mm-hmm.
Do you get those right?
Yes, but almost all the time. The feeling is imprinted in my heart, my soul, my mind.
Let me, just for a moment, I'll bring us back to the river on July 30th, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I think you'd said on the video and maybe you testified that people attacked you. Is that right?
Correct.
At some point, did people stop attacking you?
No.
At some point, did people stop attacking you?
Yes.
Okay.
It's like, let me ask that again because I didn't get the answer that I wanted.
Yeah.
When people stopped attacking you, what did you do?
I walk away.
Okay. Why didn't you stay?
Oh God. I walked away towards my group where it was safe. I was afraid of the people I just had contact with.
When you're walking away, you've talked about this fear scale. Where are you on the fear scale? Does it just go down right to 0? Does it stay at 10? Does something else happen?
No, as soon as I saw the people I trusted, my fear level started creeping down.
When you say creeping down, when you're walking back and you give us where are you on that scale?
Exactly the inverse of when you see all these people not with your group coming, your fear scale creeps up. And they set this up throughout the trial where the victims all got, more comfortable and their fear went down when they realized they had a big group with them and he was just by himself. So a good job of setting something up throughout the trial by the defense.
I was getting closer to my group. The fear factor is going lower and lower.
But when you first start walking back, what's the number?
About 8.
When you get back to the tubes, what's the number level?
About 4, 5.
I think we didn't talk about it. We talked a little bit about your body response during this brief time. When you start walking back, how's your body responding to you?
I had cramps. I felt like I had diarrhea, so I felt like I lost my bowel.
Was that
Which I did.
Was that when you were walking back, or was that when you were in that 10 seconds of things happening to you?
Traumatic, right? I mean, I don't know that can be confirmed, but pretty traumatic if that did happen to him. And I bet it was traumatic for him. I don't think anybody's going to say this wasn't a traumatic event. I understand saying not a lot of emotion being shown and things like that. But I mean, he had to be in shock after that.
You and you responding?
I was when the action was going on in the 10-second frame.
You got diarrhea?
Yes.
When you were walking back, what else is your body? What are you feeling with your body?
Well, heartbeat is getting, when I'm walking back, the heartbeat was very, very high. Now it's going down a little bit. Breathing, that's what I remember. I was super, super stressed.
How about your head? As you're going back, is your head clear? Is your head in a different state? How can you describe like what's going on in your head?
My head was in a fog. It was like thick fog. I couldn't realize what I've been through.
Because he doesn't tell any of his friends, and he gives a completely different story a couple hours later. So they're setting up why that happened so they can connect these dots in closing arguments tomorrow. Summer Golden said, I'm with you on Judge Doro. She's wonderful. What are your thoughts on this case? Why didn't he just walk away when he realized he was in the situation with the drunk teens? Why stab so many people? Once the altercation started, I got to be honest, as horrible as this may sound, I understand why he's just kind of swinging everywhere, trying to hurt these people and get them away from him, because if they're on top of him, punching him, hitting him, pushing him in the water, I get it. But it's only self-defense if he did not initiate, aggravate, start the fight, escalate. That's the only way it's actually self-defense. So I understand somewhat his actions once the fight started. But how it started is really the question for the jury. Mrs. Kevin said, Peter, my dad, a pastor, testified as a character witness in an SD case. It's a wild story, but his friend took the stand and found not guilty. Yeah, a lot of them ended not guilty with this, but I shouldn't say a lot. It's definitely the minority of cases that ended not guilty to start with. And it's a minority of cases the defendant testifies. And then it's a minority of cases when the defendant testifies that they end up in not guilty. But it does happen, absolutely. We've had it happen plenty of times for us as well. Tom, Peter, in my opinion, he needed to de-escalate and walk away. I agree. I wish that's what happened, obviously, right? And I think people that are saying that's impossible are entrenched a little bit too much in the self-defense side, which again is where I've been kind of throughout this trial. He needed to take the stand. Romanians in general are not aggressive, but if provoked, I understand. By the way, great to see all these new members. Yes, thank you, Tom.
Were you trying to make sense of it?
I was trying, but there was no sense to be made. I was completely confused and in a fog.
And when you walked away, you had the knife in your hand. Is that right?
Yep.
When you got to your group, did you still have the knife?
No.
What happened to the knife?
On the way back, I tossed it on the bank.
And you just made with your right hand kind of an underhand motion with your right hand from, at your side, raising up to maybe level with you. Is that fair representation of what you were describing?
Correct.
Why'd you toss the knife?
I don't know. I was afraid. I felt like I had to throw it away.
What were you afraid of at that point?
I was overwhelmed with just fear, residual fear. And I didn't want to.
And he's got to explain, why'd you walk away, not tell the cops, not tell anybody. That's the toughest stuff in this case for the defense.
Have anything to do with it.
Okay. We've heard testimony that eventually you get back to the tubes. Does that happen?
Yeah.
Where's your memory about that? Right now, as you sit here, because we don't have a video about that, we don't have photos of that. What's your memory like about that?
Barely remember anything.
Okay. Do you remember talking to people?
I remember people trying to talk to me, but I don't know. I don't remember what I said.
Okay. You've heard some testimony about things that you might have said. Are you denying you said any of those things?
No.
Do you know what you said?
After watching the video, yes.
The video isn't of, I'm confused. The tubes, there's no video of you at the tubes. When you say,
after.
were you talking about Brandy Hart statements?
Yes.
Okay. About what you said to the people at the tubes. Do you have any memory of that?
No.
Okay. When you're sitting there at the tubes, how are you feeling in your head? You talked about this fog, right? If you could put that on a scale, where is that?
I still couldn't, my head was in a thick cloud. I couldn't understand what just happened. Still trying to process everything. I was overwhelmed.
Did you think at any point you were just casual about what had happened?
No.
Did this feel casual to you in any way?
No.
At some point, you saw the video here. You had contact with the police, is that right?
Yes.
You had sat in the back of a squad car of the Sheriff Knutson, is that right?
Yes.
Do you remember much of anything about that?
No.
Do you remember, you've seen some of the videos today. Can you tell us, what do you remember?
Nothing.
Okay. Nothing at all? How about a feeling? Do you remember a feeling at all?
Yeah, I was still very afraid.
Okay. When you say very afraid, what were you afraid of at that point?
Well, I've been through a horror situation, but in their presence, I wasn't that afraid, but I was stunned. I don't remember much about it.
Do you remember watching the video here in court when the police were talking about a guy with a bat?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember anything about that?
A little bit.
Do you remember how that made you feel?
Oh, yeah. I felt very afraid of him. Very afraid.
We watched the video of you with Sheriff Knutson. That was about 23 seconds long. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Have you watched a longer portion of that video with your attorneys? Arrested and told.
But I don't remember that.
Okay.
Naturally.
When you're talking with at some point you go and you meet with Investigator Hart, is that right?
Yeah.
when they were talking about homicides and injuries, can you tell me what's your mindset? Did that make sense to you? Did you understand that?
No, I couldn't make any sense of it, anything that she was telling me. I just couldn't make sense of it.
Okay.
Plus, I don't remember the meeting with her.
Okay. Right now, as you sit here, you're like, I don't remember that.
Right.
The feelings. Now, some of the times that you talk with Randy Hart, you talk about what you saw happening or heard happening or what you did. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you get all of that right?
No.
Your feelings, when you were talking about your feelings, about how you believed and your fear.
Yeah. I feared for my life. That's one thing I can't deny. That's embedded in my head forever. I feared for my life. I know that. I have nightmares.
You've talked, or yeah, tell us about those nightmares.
I have them every night.
What happens in those nightmares?
Objection, Your Honor. These nightmares are irrelevant. The fact that he had them, maybe, but not the content.
His nightmares are irrelevant. And Culper said, why are lawyers allowed to use the term in shock? Shock refers to a psychological condition, a physiological condition, which means a drop in blood pressure. I think they're more using just the lay term in shock. Jurors understand what it means. It's not unusual for that to be allowed. Jenna, this made me laugh. I'm glad you're here, though. Glad you're here.
Can I approach?
Yes.
All right, we're going to have a little argument at sidebar.
Agreed?
Correct.
And when you have those nightmares, your body responds.
Objection, Your Honor. Can approach? Yes.
Approach again.
You used the knife. Did you believe you were under attack?
Yes.
Why?
Because at that point they've already been pushing and tugging, and
When you used the knife, had they done anything more than pushing or tugging? Did
they
you?
punched me. They pushed me down. They threw me in the water. I hit my head. Yes. So
When you decided to use your knife, were you using it to prevent an attack or stop the attack that was happening?
to defend myself.
Did you believe you needed to use that knife?
Absolutely.
In that moment in time, again, as you've described it, they pushed you down into the water, you've been punched. That's the moment of time I want to ask you about, okay?
Yeah.
In that moment of time when you were down in the water, did you believe you could escape?
No.
What do you believe would have happened to you had you not used your knife?
I would have died. I believe I would have been killed that day.
Why'd
Or
you,
at that specific time
why'd you use your knife?
to defend myself.
Those are the only questions I have, Judge.
All right. That's the end of direct. Now we're going to get cross queued up here, but we're going to do a couple things. John, first off, throw up our poll after direct. Where is your lean? If you had to vote right now, guilty, not guilty, hung jury, or unsure. I'm going to hit a few questions before we get to cross. I think this is the best defense attorney we've had on your channel. How long do you think the jury is going to take? I would guess Friday. That would just be my shot in the dark. Closing arguments are tomorrow, Wednesday. I think we have a verdict on Friday. I don't know. I think it's possible on Thursday. I'd be really shocked if it was Wednesday. T, at end of day discussion regarding jury instructions, the state said they intend to suggest an additional alternate theory in closing that Mew hit Madison on purpose to provoke her. Defense attorney and judge both had a WTF reaction, and I think that goes perfectly with Netwoman's comment. He had a hero complex. He had no fear approaching the group of loud, young, intoxicated people. Why did he leave to go look for the lost phone then? The moment he was told he wasn't wanted there, he should have left. And there's a lot more in this cross-examination about when he touched his knife, why he touched his knife, things like that. Pesky Pirouette. Peter, did he require any medical attention? Virtually none. Lori. Peter, I think he showed consciousness of guilt in leaving the scene and lying. Can that consciousness be used to show he didn't act in self-defense? The state, I think, is going to argue that that's exactly, even he didn't think he acted in self-defense. And we're going to hear a little bit of that on cross as well. Alyssa, why did the defense harp on a group trying to humiliate Mew with words? Wouldn't intimidate be a better description? I think so. Yeah, I mean, humiliate him just to make the victims look bad, try to get the jury not to like them, try to make them understand. But I think it's fodder for the state to use in cross to say exactly what Netwoman kind of said. You weren't going to let this happen. You have a hero complex. Debbie J, I'm having so much trouble believing him. He tubed down the river like nothing happened. His inconsistent statement and his actions afterwards, again, while they don't necessarily mean he didn't act in self-defense, because what happened during that altercation is really what should decide this case. But I think your hang up is where a lot of jurors are also going to get hung up. All right, cross-examination, here we go.
You've been drinking that day, right?
Yeah, I had a
So,
beers.
is it 1280? Recognize that?
Yes,
That's the group photo of you folks from the beginning of the room. Correct. You're holding a beer.
correct.
Looks like everybody in your group has some sort of alcoholic beverage.
Looks like it.
You see numerous people in your group with these phone cases around their necks.
Yeah.
And as you're going down the river, you saw lots of people with phone cases around their necks, right?
Mhm.
All day long?
Yeah.
In fact, River's Edge sells or rents out those phone cases, right?
I don't know that.
Did people in your group rent or buy phone cases from the tube rental?
I have no idea.
You testified that you were told to bring the knife before you left your home, right?
Correct.
And the reason for bringing your knife on the river was to cut strings or ropes for the tubes, right?
Correct.
And that was the reason you brought it.
Correct.
In fact, you told the police that after your tubes were tied together, you thought you put your knife back in the car, right?
Correct.
But in fact, it was in your pocket.
Yes.
Was it in your pocket the whole day?
No.
All right, well, we're going to get to that. Once the tubes are tied together with the rope, and you said that you thought you put it back in your car, you don't have a reason to have the knife anymore, right? It accomplished its purpose, right?
I didn't know that at the time.
Did you tell the cops, the police, you didn't think you were going to need it, and that's why you thought you put it in the car?
I may have.
Were you present when Steve Kaufman, who owns River's Edge, testified first day of the trial?
Yes.
And you heard him say that they sell pre-cut cords for $1, right?
Right.
All right, and then did you see in the picture, when you got on the river, you were wearing that long sleeve camel shirt, right?
Mhm.
A hat and sunglasses?
Correct.
Ariel's phone was in one of those cases, right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I can see it.
All right, and is it your understanding that those cases are float cases?
That's what I was told.
All right, and in fact, you told Lieutenant Guards that it was in a float case, right?
Correct.
Once the phone disappeared, there was conversation amongst the folks in your group about whether it was even worth it to go look for it, right?
That's what I learned.
And in fact, you were told that they didn't care about the lost phone because they had insurance to cover it, right?
That's what I learned here, but I don't remember that as a conversation.
Nobody asked you to go look for the phone, right?
Correct.
You chose to do that on your own.
I volunteered.
And in fact, members of your group were a little annoyed that you were stopping again so quickly after having been at the hideaway where you'd stopped for lunch.
Objection, speculation.
Sustained. Did you hear anybody in your group say, why are we stopping again?
I didn't stop the group.
The group stopped when you decided to go off on your own to look for this phone, right?
Speculation.
Overruled, right?
They already stopped. I got off the tube to look for so I didn't stop them.
In any event, you're the one who insisted on looking for it. Nobody asked you to do that, right?
Objection.
Sustained. And when you left to go look for the phone, you had your goggles and your snorkel, right? You knew that the phone was in a float bag. At least that's what you told police afterwards, right?
Mhm.
So yes.
Yes.
So the phone and the float bag would have been floating, right?
Supposedly, yeah.
All right. And so you wouldn't need a snorkeling goggles to find a.
Again, this a little nitpicky of a start. I almost skipped this, but it's like, why do you need goggles to look for something that should be floating? That makes sense. The snorkel thing, all of that. I mean, this is, a little bit of a nitpicky, probably not what I would have started with, but I guess it makes sense. Kim R., I think this is a really important sentiment. I've been feeling this and thinking about this a lot during this trial, so I appreciate you saying this.
A phone floating on top of the water, right?
I wasn't sure if it was actually floating or not. Never tested it.
All right. Well, you would agree that a phone has some weight to it.
Yes.
And if it wasn't a float bag, it would sink to the bottom, right?
Yes.
Where it was dropped.
Correct.
I
Well,
think this, sorry, everybody's saying it's faster. I forgot to move this one back down. I listened to it on 1.75. I'll move it back down to 1.5. Might be. But you guys can slow it down even further. Hit this gear on my video that you're watching. Pick whatever speed you want. YouTube lets you have it your way like Burger King.
or remember, it's a river, so it could have flown down.
The river has current, right?
Right. So it
If I
could
can
have
approach, I'm going to draw something here.
Yes.
Now, you remember when you met with Lieutenant Carter, your group. All right, and this is your group up here at the sandbar, right?
Mhm.
This is the boys' group down here. I'll put initials IS for Isaac Schumann, right?
Correct.
This is the diagram that you wrote,
Mhm.
drew for Lieutenant Carter. The phone was lost over here, right?
Mhm.
Instead of looking downstream for it, where the current was going, you went this way, across the current.
No.
To look for the phone. You made contact with Isaac Schumann's group on the other side of the river.
And that's not where I started looking for it, straight across the river.
That's where you ended up making contact with
I
them.
ended up there, but I didn't start there.
All right. The phone would not have floated across the current, right?
And a lot of people had questions about this during direct. I think this is probably where they got it, that the state wanted to show he didn't really need to be over there. And a big part of the state's cross was like, you were going over to pick a fight with all these kids, which I think is hard to believe as well. I don't really know. I mean, I don't know. How do you guys explain this? Like, you really think he really wanted to go fight these young teenage boys? Like, that just seems very weird to me. Very weird. Vicky, I definitely think it's going to play a role. And right now, a couple thousand votes in, 40% say guilty, 37% say not guilty, 10% say hung, 13% say undecided. So a very divided chat right now after direct. We're going to do a poll again after cross and see if anything changes.
Well, I don't know where he lost it. That's where we pulled over. He could have lost it minutes before we even anchored.
So when you testified a minute ago that the phone was lost, where your group was labeled M, now you're changing that story?
In that vicinity.
Again, members of the jury, what the attorneys say is not evidence. Rely on the witness's testimony. Next question, please.
In any event, it's your testimony that you had reason to go over to the south side of the river where Isaac Schuman's group was to look for a phone. That's your story?
I had reason to search in that area. I didn't know where that phone fell in the water. I don't think even Ariel knew where he lost it. We didn't drop the phone when we anchored. He dropped the phone before we got there.
Fair to say that at that point in the river is 150 feet wide?
Yep.
And Isaac Schuman's group was on the south side of the river?
Correct.
Your group's on the north side of the river?
100 feet.
Rather than searching the north side, you went to the south side of the river. Is that fair to say?
I already looked in that area.
That's not what I'm asking. You went over to the south side of the river, right?
Overruled. You can answer the question.
You did, right?
What was that question?
You
again?
went over to the south side of the river to supposedly look for this phone, right?
I ended up there at that point. Yes.
And you chose to go over there and look for it, where these boys were.
Overruled. You can answer the question.
You chose to go over to where these boys were to supposedly look for this phone, right?
Chose to look in that area. Yes.
There was other areas of the river where these boys weren't located that you could have searched until they floated past. Right?
A million other spots.
Sure. But you chose to go to that spot.
I didn't even notice those boys there at the time when I was searching.
You were present in court when Eric Williams, who was a member of your group, testified, right?
Right.
You heard him testify?
Yes.
And you were here when he testified that he had some concerns about you going over to snorkel by this group, Isaac's group.
I heard him.
And one of his concerns is that you thought that they would think you were a predator, right?
Sustained.
After cross, we'll talk more about when we do the poll, first degree, a lesser included, not guilty, hung jury, undecided. We'll add some options.
You testified that you didn't have your knife in your pocket the whole time, right?
Correct.
When you decided to go snorkel over by Isaac Schuman's group, you had the knife in your pocket.
Yes.
Did you go back to your group and get it?
No, I had the knife. I testified I did not have the knife in my pocket the whole time. When we pulled over there, I fixed my shoes. Then I left it in my pocket.
All right, but somehow, so when you get ready to snorkel,
Yes.
you've taken off your shirt, right?
Yes.
Your hat,
Yes.
your sunglasses.
Correct.
You left the knife in your pocket.
I forgot it in my pocket.
Well, on the video, we can see you touching your knife, right? You knew it was in your pocket.
Well, when you walk, it starts, yeah, but
It has weight,
Right,
right?
yeah.
So you can't forget it's there because it's
He forgot it in his pocket. And again, I did think that this was a really good job by the prosecutor every time he showed him kind of reaching to make sure his knife is there.
got weight, correct?
at some point I forgot I had it in my pocket. When, yeah.
You
when
weren't. You were not going to need your knife to snorkel and look for a lost phone.
Correct.
Overruled.
You weren't going to need your knife for that task that you set out to do, right?
I wouldn't even need anything.
But you brought it with you anyhow.
It happened to be in my pocket, yes.
Once you got over to where Isaac Schuman's group was, they made it readily apparent they did not want you over by them, correct?
That's not true.
They didn't call you names?
Yes, but they asked me what I was looking for. And I thought they were polite people. I said, I'm looking for my lost phone.
They did not want you by them, and they told you that, right?
So a lot more people saying they don't like this prosecutor than I thought, but this is kind of a common sentiment in the chat, which was interesting. I think they've been fine. I don't think they've been superstars. I think they've been fine. I think the defense has done a good job.
At some point, yes.
And that's the short video. You turn around and you're walking away, right?
Yes.
But then Joanne Cockfield calls you a raper, right?
Yes.
And then you turn around.
Yes.
You were angry.
I was not angry.
Oh, you were not angry that someone called you a raper.
No.
All right. You look at Joanne, who's filming you, right?
Yeah.
And for some reason, your testimony is that even though many people on the river have these phones and these float cases, you decided that was the phone and you needed to run up and check.
Objection argumentative.
Sustained.
Your testimony earlier was you thought he had the phone, right?
I thought he had the phone, yes.
Right.
I wanted to investigate.
And you, instead of walking up and saying, hey, is that the phone I'm looking for? You ran up on these boys, didn't you?
I ran up and stumbled, and then I fell right by there. Yes.
That's my next question. You're claiming now that you stumbled.
Yes.
You've never said that before today, ever. And you,
I don't like when prosecutors use that kind of language. I think it does border on defendant's right to remain silent, but he did give statements to multiple people and talk about this. And we're going to hear more about that. That's really damning. But again, saying something for the first time is basically accusing them of lying. When you have that he actually did lie, I don't know that you need to do this, but maybe some of you guys thought that was effective.
any law enforcement or anybody else. Right?
But I have seen the videos now.
Well, we're going to take a look at the video. And since you reviewed the video, you know that before you ran up on them, you were touching your knife in your pocket to make sure it was there, right?
I don't remember that.
Well, let's take a look.
I thought this was the second person. Yeah, tag. I mean, everything kind of goes both ways. The fear, the walk away, everything. It's really who started it, who wanted it, basically.
That's you with your right hand touching your pocket where your knife was clipped in, right?
It appears so.
And again, I think if he wanted to be difficult, he could argue and be like, I have no idea what I'm doing in that picture. Right? Like maybe I have my hand in my pocket. Maybe I'm touching my thigh. I don't know. But he gives it to him and says that's exactly what he was doing. It appears so that he was checking to make sure his knife is in his pocket. And this is early on.
What is he on? Whoa! 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 Get away!
So you're claiming today that where you reached down and grabbed at these boys' legs.
Did that look like a stumble to you? Let me know in the chat. Did that look like a stumble to you? I'll back it up so we can see it one more time. But does this look like a stumble or does it look like he was running to them? It's interesting.
What is he on? Whoa! 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 Get away!
So you're claiming today that where you reached down and grabbed at these boys' legs where their tubes are, that was a stumble. Is that your story?
Overruled. You can answer the question.
I know I hit a stone, yes. But I grabbed onto their inner tubes.
And you know where you grabbed onto their inner tube is where two of these boys had their legs draped over their inner tubes, right?
I see that.
And you made contact with their legs, didn't you?
I don't remember that.
Did you see it on the video?
I see it on the video. I don't remember actually making contact.
And as soon as you did that, these boys jumped out of their tubes to get away from you, right? You remember that?
Yeah.
And you held onto their tubes so that their tubes couldn't float away.
For how long?
Well, I'm asking you. You did.
Yeah, it looks like for a brief 1 second.
And you were searching through their tubes.
Or what?
You walked around their tubes. Rather than letting their tubes go so they could get back in their tubes and be on their way, you walked around their tubes.
So after my goggles dropped in the water, I went around their tubes to go to the other side and look for my goggles.
Let's talk about your goggles for a second, because you told the police, specifically Lieutenant Hart, that these boys knocked your goggles off your face and that you were looking for your goggles at that point, right?
I don't remember my interview with her, correct?
But you heard yourself say it in the interview.
Yes.
And in fact,
Is-
nothing of the sort ever happened.
Kind of common claim about that interview is I don't remember that interview. Jen, them saying he brought the knife looking for homicide, I think that is just a bad argument. If any of those jurors are knife carriers, which plenty of people are, I know a lot of people who do, think that that was like his plan all along. I just don't think that's the good argument. I think that he was the aggressor, that he felt a hero complex, that he felt like they weren't going to get away with saying that stuff to him. He was going to show them. That's a better argument to me.
Happened, right?
So the interview with the Brandy Hart was not accurate.
What you said at the time is what you wanted the police to believe happened, right?
That's what I remembered at the
Okay.
time.
And from the video, you can see that you actually put your goggles in your mouth so you could have two free hands to be able to grab onto these boys' tubes, right?
Yes.
So you were preparing for your stumble before it actually even happened?
I wasn't prepared for anything.
These boys were calling you names to go away, right? After you grabbed onto their tubes, touched their legs.
I don't remember any of that stuff.
All right, you don't remember them calling you, asking you what you were doing?
Watching the videos, yes. But unnatural remembering, no.
Do you remember as you're running up, they're saying, whoa, 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 what's he doing?
I don't remember that.
All right, you've seen it on the video.
Yes.
And then once you've made contact with two of these boys' legs and grabbed onto their tubes, they started calling you a pedophile, right?
I don't remember when they started calling me.
Do you remember them calling you a pedophile at all? Or do you just know that from watching the video?
Correct.
That was part of what made him afraid that they were calling him these names. I could be wrong, but I thought that was part of what he said was afraid. Alyssa, what happens if the jury hangs with one or two charges but finds him unanimously for the others? Well, he can be sentenced on the ones he's found unanimous on, and they can retry the ones that were hung if they want to. I feel like forgetting the knife is like forgetting your phone in your pocket. You know it's there, but you don't need to, and you get used to the weight. I get it. But like remembering you took it out of your pocket other parts that day and you didn't have it the whole time, that's tough to me. That's tough. Mego, second-degree murder in Wisconsin, unnecessary defensive force. If the jury doesn't find him guilty of first-degree intentional homicide, can the judge determine second degree is more appropriate? Can the jury find him guilty of second degree? So I believe the way they've charged it is they can find him guilty of a lesser included, which would include second degree. And when we do our vote after his cross-examination, we're going to have the options be guilty of first degree, guilty of second degree, not guilty, and hung jury. So we're going to see what the chat thinks about this second degree possibility.
Testified that they were calling you names earlier, right?
Right.
And that upset you.
It did not upset
Okay?
me.
Your attorneys talked about your comfort scale and your fear scale. Let's talk about your anger scale, okay?
Mhm.
At the time you were called a raper, what was your anger scale at?
Maybe 1.
1 out of 10?
Yeah.
And that was enough to get you to run up on these boys, grab onto them, stop their tubes at 1. Is that what you're saying?
Objection, argument, that's not what he said.
It's a student.
You don't like being humiliated, right?
Nobody does.
Your attorney has said that these boys were humiliating you.
Objection as to his making.
Sustained on the form.
You're claiming that you were being taunted.
Objection, he did not testify to that.
Sustained. Form.
Those shoes didn't prevent you from running up on these boys, right?
Yes, they did. That was, if I had better shoes, I could walk better, but I could still walk.
If you had better shoes, you would have been able to run up on them faster.
No, I mean, I could walk better. I wouldn't stumble. I wouldn't have a hard time walking.
All right, we're gonna watch the video again, and I want you to, if you can, point out for everybody where you stumbled.
Whoa, 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 get away.
Did you watch it?
Yes,
So the stumble, is that something you remember or something that you think you see in the video?
something I remembered.
After you grabbed onto their tubes, stopped them, walked around their tubes, you took a few steps downriver and stood in the path they were floating in, right?
Objection as to form. Multiple.
Overruled. You understand the question, Mr. Mew?
A lot of objections coming.
Could you say it again?
After you left their tubes that first time, you took a few steps downstream and stood in their path where they would need to float, where they were floating.
People are asking why I don't put manslaughter in here. I can only do 4 options. So we're a little limited here with our YouTube polls.
Right?
For a few seconds, yes.
You didn't walk off to the South Shore, which was close at that point, right?
I thought I walked far away from them. I didn't even watch them anymore at that point. So I don't know where they were at that point in time. But I was still looking for my goggles now.
Are you denying that you stood right in the path of their tubes?
Objection, argument,
Overruled. You can answer the question.
At that moment in time,
Especially
yes.
a lot of argumentative, and a lot of them get overruled. I don't know if they're trying to break up the flow, if they feel like it's going poorly for them. But I feel like when I start noticing how many objections there are, as somebody who does this for a living and sometimes objects a lot if it's necessary, that's probably not a great thing. You guys let me know. Does it seem like the defense is trying to hide something or block the questions? Because a lot of these are also overruled. So if you're just a lay person on the jury, how do you feel about all these objections?
Yes.
Now, when you ran up on these boys and grabbed onto their tubes and made contact with their legs, you weren't saying anything at that point, right?
No.
You didn't say anything like, hey, I think that's my phone or Ariel's phone.
I don't remember saying anything.
You've seen the video.
Right.
You just ran up and grabbed onto them,
It appears that.
was saying nothing. We can go up to the screen. We're going to look at some more frames here. Right?
For a moment.
All right. Keep going. Stop. At that point, you had the entire river open to move in any direction, right?
Right.
You chose to just walk a few steps directly downstream from where their tubes were, right?
Correct.
The boys were yelling at you at this point, right? You remember that?
Yep.
They were making a commotion, right? They were loud,
Mhm.
and that attracted the attention of the folks in the Carlson group, right?
Mhm.
Gabby, yeah, and you've always got to pick your spots. As a defendant, as a defense attorney, what are you going to admit? What are you going to give on? What are you not? And when you miss there, it can be big misses if a jury feels a certain way about it.
You testified that Maddie Cohen walked over, right?
Yep.
You walked towards her,
Yes.
and the water level at the spot that you had contact with Maddie was about ankle deep from the video.
From the video, yes.
And you told Lieutenant Hart you were standing in really shallow water, right?
Yep.
Maddie told you to leave the area, right?
She didn't say it that way, but yes.
She said, go, go, go.
And
She's like, she swore you too, but she was telling you to go, right?
Yeah.
You didn't go.
I was trying to communicate with her what I was doing in the river.
You didn't leave, right?
No, not on the river.
Hold on.
Objection irrelevant of legal basis.
Overruled.
objection relevance again, because she says you have to leave doesn't mean you have to leave. But again, making it clear his presence was not wanted there. Miss Melanie, overruled means they can answer yes. Sustained means you cannot answer that question or they've got to rephrase the question.
It's relevant.
You did not leave, right?
I
At the
didn't
time
go
that
in
she
the
came up,
direction. No,
when she came up and said, go, 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 you chose to stay, right?
I wanted to talk.
You didn't like that she was yelling at you, right?
I only had like 2 or 3 seconds of direct verbal or whatever.
And you clearly didn't like she was swearing at you, right? And what you told her was not that you were looking for a phone, but that these boys took your goggles, right?
I don't remember what I told her.
If it's on the video, did you say it?
If it's on the video, yeah.
You never mentioned you were looking for a phone.
I don't remember my conversation with
And in
her.
fact, after you told her that they took your goggles, you never said another word, right?
After that?
Right.
Of course I did.
Talking about your anger scale, at the point where Maddie Cohen was yelling at you and pointing at you and swearing at you, where was your anger scale?
1.
And even with your anger scale being only 1, you started touching, fidgeting with the knife in your pocket, right?
I don't remember that.
Let's take a look at the video. We're ready. It's timestamp 130. That's you yelling at you, right?
It's possible.
So even though you were fearing for your life,
Objection. Not reset at that time.
Overruled. Let's get the question out.
you turned your back on these folks, right?
Where am I in that location as reference to the other people?
I get to ask the questions at this point. Okay.
All right.
You're back at the 135 mark that we just watched. You've turned your back on these folks, right?
Okay.
Is that true?
Yes, I see that. Yeah.
Right.
I think that was a fair question by him. And again, the attorney's right, obviously. It's his turn to answer or ask questions, not the defendant's. But when you don't even answer that, I probably would have been like, okay, here's where you are. That's fair. Let me tell you where you are when I'm asking you this. But to not give that sometimes doesn't look good in front of the jury. Nancy, why are they allowed to add new charges at the end of trial? Seems like they know they aren't making the murder case, so they want to add lesser included. Some states just allow you to add lesser included. Some states allow the state attorney's office to just amend all sorts of things in the complaint, including like dates of actions and all sorts of words in the charging documents right before the case goes to a jury. It's wild. My dad and I did a deep dive on this in another video. It's wild how they can do that in certain jurisdictions. Nuke worker. In my opinion, the environment changed the moment the kids physically touched him. The grab, push, first touch made it confrontational, regardless of how creepy they thought he was. What if they had said here, let me help you find the phone? Yeah, I mean, obviously they could have done a lot to make this different. And if you feel this way, you obviously, I would assume you're feeling that this was in self-defense and he was responding to how they were acting.
Right? You're touching your knife, but you got your back to him, right?
I see that in the picture.
And so at that point, you wouldn't have turned your back on these folks if you had fear of them, right?
Objection mischaracterizes his testimony.
Overruled. Overruled. You can answer the question. Yes.
Sidebars.
Right? You turned your back on the groups of people that were in the area and you're touching your knife, right? And at that point, you called out to your friends because I think you had said, and maybe I'm wrong, that your fear scale was going up at that point. Is that not right?
I see lots of people around me, and I wanted somebody to be on my side.
Right. Your fear scale was going up, so you tried to wave your buddies over, right?
Creeping up, yeah.
And as it's creeping up, you're fidgeting with your knife.
It appears that way.
At some point,
Definitely knew his knife was in his pocket at this point, right? He definitely knew that. Petty, honest throwaway about the lack of remorse. I wonder if the history in Romania and war makes him compute and comprehend violence differently if he experienced that stuff. Honestly, I have no idea. I'm not sure how to answer that, but I think there is cultural differences. Obviously, we've talked about language barriers in this case as well. And a lot of people are blaming a lot of inconsistencies on language barrier. He didn't seem to have problems with the language barrier in that interview where he said, two people had knives and he took one of their knives and used one of their knives. Yes, Jenna, thank you for reminding the people. Hit that like button if you guys haven't already, and make sure you subscribe so you can come back as we continue to talk about this case and so many others. I've loved to follow the chat tonight, answer your guys' questions. It's been really fun. You know, I don't usually love doing long streams. So to do this for, over 2 hours before this is all said and done, I'm enjoying it. I appreciate you guys. I'm learning a lot from how you see this case.
And even though your fear level is creeping up at that point and you called for help from your friend, or at least waved for help, you turned your back, right?
Yes.
At one point, you turn your head and you stare at the group of 17-year-old boys, right? You remember doing that?
I don't remember, but if I see a video.
Put it into context, it would have been at the point when Maddie Cohen tried to turn you away from those boys. You remember doing that?
Yes.
And 1 second, if we can get the frame up.
Yeah.
That's an angry
I'm frustrated.
at that time at 1:16.
Yes.
That's a look on your face.
Yeah.
That's an angry look.
Not to me. I was annoyed more than frustrated, but not angry.
At the point where you looked at the boys with that expression on your face, whatever it was, you had the entire river in front of you open to walk to, right? That's true.
Correct.
And instead you chose to turn back around where Maddie Cohen was, right?
I stood my ground. I basically stayed in the same location. I didn't go towards anybody at that point.
You didn't take a step away either, did you?
No.
And at that point then, that's when Riley Madison joins her. You've got Madison and Riley standing in front of you, right?
I suppose that's the time, yeah.
2 girls.
Yeah.
And these 2 girls standing in front of you touched your shoulders somewhat, right?
Mhm.
You never said yes?
And again, the prosecution's goal here is to make this sound like a very low confrontation point from the victims, and that the defendant is obviously the aggressor. Daybreak said, it seems the theory is he thought the kids stole his friend's phone and maybe the knife was to confront them. If that's the case, he could be the initial aggressor. Gosh, I just think that's so weird. That is just such a weird... I agree with you. I think that is part of what the prosecution might be throwing out there. That's not a great story for me. Lucia, it's surprising the kids' blood alcohol didn't come in for the prosecution. They were clearly hammered per the blood test. Would that even help? I think that did come in. Brian Lee, he left Romania when he was a kid and speaks 5 languages. Language/cultural barrier, not an issue here. I think it just depends on, some people might think it is, some people might think it's not. This is not a good sign for him. Netwoman, geez, not feeling him. At least Murdaugh launched a snot rocket. Ego, ego, ego. Words are not violence to fight back. He reminds me of the guy walking into a biker bar thinking he's the big man. Wow. Strong words from Netwoman. So definitely a negative if she's on the jury for Mr. Mew testifying.
Yes.
You never stumbled backwards or anything like that?
It wasn't somewhat, but
Well, let's take a look at the video. We're going to start a little bit earlier than the part I wanted to start at. It's at the 135 mark again. We can put this screen up. Take the screen down. Starting at that point, you're touching your knife before Maddie and Riley are standing in front of you, right?
appears that way.
Before he starts saying that they made it physical and started touching him, he's already fiddling with his knife, making sure it's there, ready to use it. Now, to me, this could kind of cut both ways. This could show he's afraid and ready to defend himself if it does go bad, and then it did go bad and he defended himself, or he was looking for a deathly encounter.
Stop. You had said that your fear level was rising.
Mm-hmm.
You had waved to your friends, right? That was the look on your face at the time, correct?
Mm-hmm.
You're smiling.
I'm confused.
You're smiling.
I'm confused.
You're not smiling?
That's not a smile.
Yes. Let's move on, please.
A little weird, but again, a still shot in a video to try to make a big deal that he was smiling. I didn't think he needed to do that. I'm sure, though, there are some jurors that did not take kindly to that. Sean said, I think what this guy did was wrong. I don't think he should get away with it, but I also don't think what they did was right either. Not everything is a TikTok video. Yeah. Again, I don't know what the further culture stuff is or whatever, but the culture of filming everything and escalating it to be filming and people trying to perform and be cool for the cameras. You have some of these streamers doing crazy things to get noticed. Those turn into physical altercations all the time. I'm not a fan of it either, Sean. Debbie J. Cross makes it hard to believe him, but it's hard. It's good lawyering, Debbie. We always talk about how, we read one motion it should make us agree with that lawyer if they do a good job being convincing. But then when we read the other one, it's like, well, now I agree with this guy. So that's why we're saving, and we're going to do another vote right near the end of cross-examination.
Can we get the screen back? All right, so you have been fidgeting with your knife multiple times. You've got Riley Madison in front of you. I believe her testimony was she's a 115-pound woman. You got Maddie Cohen on your other side. This is when you choose to pull out your knife, right?
Overruled. Understand the question?
What does her weight have to do with me?
So you don't get to ask the
Oh, I'm
questions
sorry.
at this point. You pulled out your knife at this point with these two girls standing in front of you, right?
Yes,
And you held it down by your belt line, right?
yes,
And you open it up, right?
yes.
And this is before you had been punched or anything like that. You had that knife ready with these two girls standing in front of you.
Objection, I did use the term girls.
Women, pardon me.
Mhm.
Right?
I mean,
And
that's just a, come on, that objection, calling them girls, because it's so much about the boys and teens and young kids that they've been arguing about. Tom, Peter, I've never heard these terms used in the case. Anger meter, fear scale, is that normal? So they're trying to compute to the jury where it rose to the level of being in fear of serious bodily harm or death. And we use pain scales all the time, but those are also in medical records. You know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad did it hurt? So they're just trying to apply that to the self-defense case. And the prosecution, I think, is trying to take that theme and flip it when they talk about the anger scale, trying to paint him as the aggressor. So it's just lawyers trying to use things to help paint the picture inside a jury's mind. Why not a mega pint? Sorry, Peter. Tom.
You didn't hold it up and say, hey, I have a knife, right?
To me, that would be a threat.
I'm not asking you that. You did not hold it up.
No.
And you didn't, in fact, you held it down by your side, right?
Overruled.
Isn't that what you did?
Yes,
You didn't take a step back and brandish it and say, hey, back up, I have a knife, right?
correct,
You opened it down low and then you held it down low by your side, right?
correct.
And as you're doing that, you're smiling, right?
That's not a smile.
Well, let's take a look at the video.
I'm overwhelmed and annoyed.
You held it with the blade facing up, right?
I didn't pay attention, but in the video, yes,
And it becomes important later when you stab AJ because you didn't try to cut him down, you cut him up, right? Right.
that was not my intent.
Overruled.
Okay, so I'm going to skip through this a little bit. They go back and forth about whether he went up or down or how he cut him. Just in the interest of time, I'm going to skip through a little bit of this. It's a bit of a semantical argument, in my
Answer
opinion.
the question.
I'm sure
Yes.
something in the chat will
Going
tell.
down a little bit because now you had your knife open,
No,
right? Was your fear level going up at that point? I think you said that earlier.
the whole situation was boiling up.
So when you have your knife open, you take a couple steps backwards to get away from the situation.
I stood my ground. I stayed in place.
You never backed up one step, did you?
Thank you, Joe.
You had your knife out and you were prepared to use it.
To defend myself.
At that point, there's nothing to defend yourself from, right?
I didn't know that.
If I understand your testimony today, now you're acknowledging that you did do something to Maddie Cohen, which started off this fight, right?
Overruled.
You did do something to start this fight, he said. Interesting verbiage by a lawyer.
Answer the question. Yes.
Vodka and all the other garbage.
My
Right.
point-
But I went over to push. She was right in my face, right in my space, yelling. I could smell the alcohol in her breath.
But you'd been drinking too, so it might have been your breath.
I didn't have vodka and all the other garbage.
My
Right.
point is, today you testified that you did something physical to Madison Cohen before you were punched, right?
Mm.
Correct?
I don't know if I touched her or not. It's possible that I did.
If your
Madre P. That's exactly what they're getting to here, that he did. He was also drinking. And again, all of these comments it's really interesting because the last poll ended at basically literally a split, guilty, not guilty. And then, 25% either undecided or hung.
friend Sergio testified last week that he saw you push her and she went flying back a couple of steps. That's what happened, right?
Sustained.
Were you present when Sergio testified?
Sustained.
Right? pushed Maddie Cohen, only one person ever punched you, right?
From the video?
Right.
That's what I see. I don't remember what happened then at that time.
I'm not asking you what you remember. I'm asking what actually happened.
I got punched.
Objection, no foundation.
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
You
Started.
saw in the video that only one person ever punched you, right?
Yes.
Objection.
Cross, it's not
Hold
leading.
on. Yes.
Another sidebar, but objection leading. Again, defense attorneys are used to being the ones crossing and leading and objecting to leading questions.
Identified that you fell back in the water and hit your head, right?
Yes.
You did not drop your knife, right? You held on to it when you fell down in the water.
Yes.
When Dante Carlson hit you, he was holding a can of beer in one hand, right?
Yes.
He was fighting you with one hand.
Yes.
I mean, somebody can do some damage with one hand. Some people.
You never suffered any kind of bruising or cuts to your face from this incident, right?
On the inside of my cheek?
You cut the inside of your cheek.
Yes.
Yeah, you never had any bruising on your jaw, right?
I don't remember. I mean, I had a beard. I couldn't tell.
You weren't bleeding from your face anywhere.
No, not that I know.
Let's play the video of what's happening. Once you're knocked down in the water, AJ Madison comes up to you and pushes on your back, right?
Objection, no foundation.
Sustained.
Presses on your back. Definitely doesn't hold you in the water. And it's like if you're too soft on some of the stuff, if you're saying he started it, he wanted the fight, he brought the fight, I think it's okay to admit the fight was there. So I wouldn't downplay. If you downplay what happened in that video, I mean, I'd be like, come on, dude. Like, obviously, this guy was in fear for his life. So you can't really downplay that either as a prosecutor. Work. I completely agree with you. I will feel more comfortable in whatever the jury comes up with as their verdict in this case because there is the video. They watched it. They got to make their determination with the video and then the context of all the other evidence, but most importantly, the video.
We'll play the video.
Objection, no foundation.
Overruled.
In response, you got up out of the water, right?
Mhm.
You take your knife in your right hand with the blade up, right?
Objection is in narration.
Overruled.
A lot of objections.
That's what you did, right?
Still in my hand, yes, that way.
You jabbed it into his belly.
About the same time he hit me in the throat.
That's not what I'm asking.
Yes.
You jabbed it into his belly, right?
Yes.
Instead of pulling it out, you pulled up, right?
Because I had so much time to think about it.
You pulled up.
I did not pull up. Look at the angle of my arm.
We're stopped at timestamp 156. You see your knife,
Yes.
how close it is to his jaw, his chin?
Yes.
That's because when you stabbed him, instead of pulling out, you went up, right?
I was falling backwards with the knife in my arm, in my hand, and the angle of my arm was about the same. Just got hit in the throat.
In this frame of the video, the knife's pointing straight up, right?
Yes.
You went in, pulled up, and it's by the time you got done up by his face, your knife's pointing straight up.
Objection has been answered.
Overruled. You can answer the question.
It's straight up.
At that point, Tony Carlson came in to break up the fight.
Objection, speculation. He doesn't know what Tony Carlson's doing.
Overruled. You can ask the question. He can answer.
I don't
A lot of objections. Holly Bobali said a similar defense to Rittenhouse, who started it and was the force lethal force justified. Very similar in a lot of these self-defense cases. Yes. PMD, I'm getting caught up, but is every question being asked by the defense attorney to his client practiced and recited, almost scripted? Nothing is of surprise when asked by the defense, correct? It shouldn't be surprised, but it's not always so scripted, like you give them questions and answers, but it's kind of, you talk about topic points, what you want to discuss, go back and forth, hear his story so you know what's coming. So no surprises, yes, but not always scripted like a play where you're reading lines.
know what he was doing.
You know that he told Dante Carlson to back up, right?
By the way, his lawyer objected. He doesn't know what he was doing. And what's his answer? I don't know what he was doing. That's why those objections are really frustrating when you're on the other side trying to do things the right way.
Objection, no foundation.
Overruled.
Another
Do I know from video and from testimony? Yes. At the time, I didn't know.
After you stabbed AJ Madison, you were pushed back into the water, right?
Just sorry, it's AJ Carlson.
Pardon me. No, it's not. It's not. It's AJ Madison. He's not part of the Carlson family. AJ Martin.
Thank you.
Pardon me. After you stabbed AJ Martin, you were pushed back into the water, right?
Yes.
Nobody jumped on top of you.
No.
Nobody was kicking at you or punching you.
No.
You're just in the water by yourself, right?
Apparently, yes.
We're going to take a look at the video starting at 1. Pardon me, this is before you got up. At this point, you're standing there. There's nobody hitting you, nobody's punching you, nobody's kicking you, right?
Objection. That's not the video. He's not standing.
Gentlemen, please come up.
And continue, people weren't punching on you, right?
At that time, I couldn't tell what was going on around me.
That's at the point that Tony Carlson came over, was yelling at people to back up. Do you remember that?
From the video.
You don't have a memory of that in your head? He separated Dante from you, right?
Objection. No foundation.
Overruled.
Right?
It's from my memory. I don't remember that.
Tony Carlson never punched you, correct?
Correct.
He never kicked you, never pushed you,
Objection.
Overruled.
and you turned around and you stabbed him twice, right?
I couldn't see. I couldn't hear. I didn't know who was punching me, touching me, shoving me, nothing. I was fearing for my life.
You stabbed the guy who tried to break up the fight twice, right?
Objection.
Overruled.
That's what happened, right?
That's what happened.
And luckily for him, he was able to block your first stab, so you stabbed him again, right?
I had milliseconds to think.
Riley Madison, after you stabbed Tony Carlson,
I had merely seconds to think. I couldn't tell if he was breaking up the fight or was the next one jumping on top of me. Right? I don't think that it was like so easy to tell who was hitting him and who wasn't. Once they start punching him, shoving him in the water, holding him down, at that point, I think he's fighting for his life. Now, did he create the situation he was in? I'm repeating myself, but that's the big question to me. I don't believe that he knew who was trying to break up the fight and who wasn't. I think at that point, he thought everybody was getting him. Elizabeth said, entitled Stone Drunk Boys Full of Machismo Caused It. In the words of EDBF, around and find out. I mean, I definitely think if you're going self-defense and you feel that way, that's kind of the line of thinking.
you turned around, you got up, you turned around, and you sliced Riley Madison through the left side of her body, right?
Yes.
She wasn't punching you or kicking you.
She came at me and she had her hands on me.
At the time you stabbed her, she had her hands on you.
Yes.
This 115-pound woman attacked you while you're standing there holding a knife.
She could have been 500 pounds. I don't know. I'm sorry, sir, but
You've never told anyone ever that Riley Madison attacked you and that's why you stabbed her, right?
No.
You're saying it today for the first time.
I don't remember this whole thing.
After you stabbed
I
Riley,
feel bad for him. It's like, to ask him to remember every second of this interaction when he's fighting for his life, in shock, dealing with all this is tough. Very different than the cop interview, okay? I'm hammering him for that. And I would have probably spent an hour on that and go through every single lie. I mean, it was a ton. I was planning on doing it until he testified and kind of took over my plan for the video. But I mean, so many intentional lies in that video. Very different than here when you're going frame by frame. Who was touching you when you did this? He was breaking up the fight. She was just doing this. She only weighs 115 pounds. He doesn't know that stuff. So I do feel for him a little bit in this part of the cross.
Riley Madison, Isaac Schumann tries to push you, right?
And he lands his hands on my throat. Yes.
But his hands originally weren't anywhere near your throat. They were on your shoulder and your chest, right?
I didn't take measurements, but yeah, from the picture, yes.
And as soon as he touches you, you stab up into his heart with your knife, right?
He went for my throat, and I defended myself. Yes.
Are you saying, we're going to look at the video. Ready? We're at 2:05, the timestamp on the video. That's Isaac Schumann, right? If you don't,
Right.
His left hand on your arm, right?
Right.
His right hand on your chest, right?
Right.
They're not on your throat.
In that particular frame.
And
Correct.
your right hand is cocked, your elbow's bent, right?
Okay.
And you've got the knife in your hand.
Yes.
Play it through, please. And as he's pushing you, you jam your knife up into his heart, through his ribcage, right?
After he touches my throat and pushes me back. Yes. Correct.
As your arm is moving up to stab him, you actually moved his arm closer up or farther up your body with your own movement, right?
I don't know how to answer that. I didn't see that.
At the time that this incident happened, you agree you weighed 248 pounds?
Yes,
Not one of these people that you stabbed so far in the video were armed in any fashion, right?
right.
You told an elaborate story about people pulling knives on you, right?
Overruled.
Right? You made up that story.
And now he's going to get into, again, some of their best evidence. Save it near the end of Cross. Daybreak. This is a hard one. My feeling is leaning towards him being the initial aggressor and even having a desire to hurt people. I just don't like the guy, but still have a lot of reasonable doubt. Then you should definitely vote not guilty if you have a lot of reasonable doubt. That's just a fact. The helpful stranger. Peter, if you're going to use lethal force against another human, you better know damn well their intentions. No debate. Can't always know somebody's intentions, but you know how you feel in that situation and you got to make quick decisions. It's really, really tough. Chris Legit, as someone who was a junior at 19 years old on a federal murder trial in Arizona, I'm leaning 85% not guilty. The reason it was a federal murder trial is because it happened on the res, not guilty. Wow. It's wild. It's a wild story. And 85% not guilty is 100% not guilty, in my opinion. Thank you for sharing that with us, Chris. Borg. The level of bloodthirsty celebration of the violence in the chat is very distressing. FAFO as justification for asymmetrical violence. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to answer this. There are always going to be people we disagree with in the chat. We try to do it the right ways. So I hope everybody does that.
To Brandy Hart.
Lieutenant Hart, yes.
I don't remember that, but I saw the video. Yes,
At no point did anybody pull any knife on you, right?
correct,
You're the only person who had a knife.
correct.
You had said earlier you had waited for your friends to come over because you were so scared, right? Right?
During we're moving back in time now.
Oh yeah, earlier you had waved. You saw
Yes,
the video. You said
yes,
you waved to your friends
yes.
because you were scared. Your fear level was at whatever. And in fact, Ariel came over, right?
Your fear level was at whatever.
Yes,
And he's in the group at the point that Riley Madison's standing there bleeding into the river, right? He's standing
yes.
right behind you.
Yep.
And at the time that you stabbed Tony Carlson, Ariel's right there, right in the group, correct?
See that in the video. Yes,
And when you stabbed Isaac Schumann, he's also standing there, right?
I didn't see him there at the time, but yes, in the video. Yes,
So this narrative about it being 13-on-1, you had a friend there, right?
Overruled.
Your friend's standing right there. He's in the video, right?
in the video. I don't remember him being there.
I actually do think some of the language of the prosecutor is argumentative. And it's funny that, I mean, he's not winning any of these objections, but he shouldn't be able to qualify these questions like that. He can just ask, your friend was right there, right? You did this, right?
You saw him coming, walking downstream.
I don't remember.
You waved for him, right?
I waved at my group.
At no point when you stabbed Tony, Riley, and Isaac, did you call out to your friend and say, hey, help me, they're attacking me, right? Even though he's in the frame and he's close to the action, so to speak. You never said that, right?
I was stunned. Couldn't talk.
Carlson, right?
Yes,
And this is in the sequence of events, everything else had happened, right?
yes,
All the other stabbings had already occurred, right? To the point that you stabbed Dante Carlson.
yes.
He wasn't punching you at that point.
I was surrounded. People were coming at me. I just came up a couple of times, being punched in the head, punched in the mouth. I fell on river rocks. I was in pain. I was hurting.
Tony Carlson had broken up the fight between you and Dante never hit you again after that, did he?
Objection. That's
Sustained form. Please rephrase.
At the point that you stabbed Dante Carlson, he was not fighting with you, right?
Correct,
He had not punched you immediately before you decided to stab him.
correct.
In fact, you took a couple steps toward him to stab him, didn't you?
I thought he was attacking me.
So at that point, you stabbed 5 people and you decided to leave the area. Is that true?
I walked away.
You walked up to Ernesto.
I don't personally think he hit that interview nearly enough at that point. I can't remember if he does it more later, but now he goes to some of the other good evidence that they have and what he did after the stabbings. Steve, have you covered the teen violence in Gilbert, Arizona group of teens beating up individuals posting social media similar situation? I think I've done one video. There is a playlist on our YouTube channel already if you want to check out that one. Tenny, did they ever bring up the jail phone calls that were spoken in Romania? They did say they had them translated. I know he mentioned talking to his brother in Romania during this testimony. I don't remember anything else that was brought by him. Speed guy, y'all harping on lying. Who here has never lied? People lie out of stress and fear. First degree requires premeditation and motive. Right. Not motive. No, but premeditation. Yes. Alyssa, after Mew fell the first time, that would have been proportional if he was the initial aggressor. When they kept assaulting him after that, he had a reason to defend himself. You don't kick someone when they are down. These nuances are so important and very difficult usually for the jury to all get on the same page about. These are the types of things I think that will take time and then making their decision.
Right?
Yes.
You didn't say anything about being attacked, right?
I was in shock.
You said they took my knife, right? Tornasco?
I don't remember that, but that's what I said according to all the video. And
Well, if Ernesto said that, that's what you
Yes.
said.
Yeah.
You still got the knife on your person, right? Even though you just told them they took your knife, you still had it. Right?
no, when I reached the tubes,
No. When Ernesto came walking up and you walked up to him, you told him they took my knife. It's the first thing out of your mouth, right?
I don't remember that.
Okay. Instead of walking to your group, you walked up to the south shore of the lake, or the river, right?
Yes,
And on the way, you washed off the knife in the river.
I don't remember that.
Well, you had blood on your hand and on the knife, right?
Yes,
When you left the area, right?
Yeah.
When you got back to your group, nobody saw any blood on your hands, or right?
Objection, foundation.
Sustained.
At some point, you rinsed your hand and the knife in the water, right?
I don't remember that. Yeah.
What you do remember is throwing the knife up into the bushes on the south bank.
Right on the bank, yes.
And then you finally walked over to your group, right?
As I was walking, I threw it away, yes.
No, you walked out of your way to get to the south bank to get rid of it, and then walked back across the river to your group, right?
Overruled.
That's what you did, right?
You can't say, no, you did this. That's not how you're supposed to ask questions. I get it. But again, so many objections that are getting overruled, I do think eventually could have a negative effect for the defense team.
Yes.
We're going to play the video taken by Larry and Davis, Judge.
Yes, and we'll come back at 2:50. Please take the jury out.
Make out who was who.
Right, there's a person wearing dark shorts with the same body type as you in the video. Is it you?
Fear.
Hold on. Sustained.
Yes, Pearl.
We're going to play part of it, but slower, but not the end part. We're ready. What's the timer? Yeah. This is at the very beginning. And Mr. Mew, do you see yourself in the left-hand side foreground wearing the dark shorts? Where the cursor's pointed?
I can't make out.
You don't know if that's you?
No.
Did anyone else on the river have the same body shape that you had at the time?
Objection, no foundation.
How the heck would you know that? Come on.
You, the people that were all involved in the incident, right?
Yes.
At the time that you stabbed these folks, there wasn't anybody else in that area of the river that had the same body shape.
Becken Dog Lover, I think, if you were sitting on this jury, I think that would ring true with some of what he's saying. Interesting, right? When people have these, so what's so cool about having so many people in the chat sharing, their background, their thoughts, what they think, what they know, what pops into their head. Jurors bring that to the jury room too. They really do.
It was you, correct?
Objection, no foundation.
Sustained. The same question.
You're aware that Dante Carlson's wearing shorts that are black on the bottom and light gray on top, right?
That's what I learned.
We're gonna go through it slowly.
Yes.
The sandbar, right?
Yes.
Sat in your tube? Did you sit down in your tube?
Yes.
Eric Williams from your group, realizing that people were hurt, left?
Objection, form, Black Foundation.
Sustained.
Did you see Eric Williams leave your group?
No.
At some point, did you notice he wasn't with your group anymore?
I didn't do a head count, sir. Sorry.
Okay. Did anyone else from your tubes go to help with the folks on the river that were hurt?
No foundation.
Overruled. Can you answer the question?
I don't remember. I wasn't paying attention to anybody in my group.
When you went back to your tube, you put your shirt back on, right?
I was cold. Yes.
And you put on your hat, right?
Yes.
And your sunglasses.
Yes.
Eventually, you saw police officers and emergency medical technicians show up on the river.
And again, asking the questions that way definitely makes it look he's disguising himself, even though he would argue he's not. Sean, what's the most prison time you think he could get, and what's the least prison time? I'm not sure about least. Most is obviously life in prison. Under your scars, one scared old feeble guy stabbed 5, 1 died. He shows no empathy, lower charge, but still guilty with all the lies. Thank you, Peter. Yeah, I mean, I can see how you get there. Bay Photo. What do you think about his testimony? Should he have just stayed silent? I go back and forth. If it was my decision, I probably would have put him on the stand or advised to get on the stand, but I do think there were some major parts of Cross that hurt him, especially having him testify right after his police interrogation video was shown. But once that interrogation video is shown, the damage is kind of done. I don't think he scored a lot of points in his testimony. Overall, I would give him probably below, maybe a C, maybe below a C. And again, that's not going to help you win your case usually. I think if he wins his case, it's purely on the video. Debbie J, thank you for the super chat. His story changes, and honestly, AJ was gutted. How do you explain that and then walk away floating down the river? So weird. Yeah. To add the context that you just get back in and float away, and then you ditch the knife and you wash your hands off in the water, you put your hat, your sunglasses on, all of that stuff. I told you the two biggest things that are negative for him are his own statements and then what he did after.
Right?
Yes.
Wading up the river, right?
Yes.
Trying to help people that have been injured. And
Objection, no foundation.
Overruled.
you saw that happen, right?
Yes.
You didn't approach anybody to say you were attacked as far as law enforcement or EMTs or anything like that, right?
No, I just pooped myself. I was afraid to go in that area.
Even though
Sorry.
there's police presence everywhere, you were afraid to walk over there and tell them, hey, this is what happened.
Yes, sir.
So you got in your tube and you floated down the river.
Not immediately. We waited there. We had people, from what I learned, not that I remember, that called 911, and yeah, I don't remember any of that stuff. So I don't remember.
So you remember waiting for Eric Williams to come back to join your group so you could leave?
I don't remember.
All right, do you remember saying, let's go? You yourself saying that?
Objection, asked and answered.
Overruled. Overruled.
I don't remember.
Ernesto Torres, he's your best friend.
Yes.
You didn't tell him what happened as you were floating away?
I didn't talk to. I don't remember talking to anybody. I don't even remember going down the river or up the river. I was just stunned. I don't remember anything.
And you didn't tell Ernesto, I was afraid for my life and I did this?
No.
You never told Ernesto that I acted in self-defense?
I don't remember talking to anybody.
You didn't say I was afraid they were going to kill me, these folks?
Objection, no foundation. He said he doesn't.
Overruled.
Again, partially stepping on your right to remain silent, but also consciousness of guilt that he did not act in self-defense and did not have that argument at the time. But a couple hours later, he did. So, I mean, he was still talking self-defense. He could have done it then. He just didn't. Depends on what the jury thinks. I mean, that's really what the end game is here.
I don't remember.
As you were leaving the area, you saw folks giving CPR to Isaac Schumann, right?
I didn't see that.
Eventually, you made it down to Village Park where the exit was, right?
Eventually.
And there's some video of you relaxing your tube and playing in the water with your hand, right?
Objection is the form.
Sustained.
You remember seeing the video of you
I remember seeing the video.
relaxing in your tube before you got back to the end?
Objection is the form.
Sustained.
Did you see the video or not?
I said I did.
You're wondering what the objection is, relaxing in your tube. You know, that's, he didn't say he was relaxing in his tube, and it's objecting to the form of the question, but he could ask, were you relaxing in your tube?
When you got to Village Park, your group exited the river, right?
Yes.
There was multiple police in the area, right?
Yes.
You saw a uniformed officer with his gun drawn, walking towards you, right?
Right.
You didn't approach that officer.
I was afraid of everybody.
You were afraid of the officer?
I was afraid of anything and everybody. I was afraid of anything. I couldn't. I was still in shock, so I was afraid of everything. Yes.
You didn't approach the officer and say, they tried to kill me, I defended myself, nothing like that, right?
I don't remember saying anything like that to anybody.
You walked right by him, right?
All that is a blur. I don't remember it.
Once you got further up the path, though, other officers were able to pick you out of your group, right?
Apparently, yes.
They stopped you, right, before you could leave the park.
I don't remember that.
You don't remember the police stopping you and detaining you in the park after this incident?
I remember being stopped, but I don't remember the details.
Sure. You were aware that the police had a picture of you from the river, right?
Okay.
Do you remember that?
I don't remember.
You remember the police had to take your hat and glasses off to make sure that it was you in the picture?
Nope. I was focused on one thing only. Somebody with a bat that I've seen in the woods and across that whatever bridge, the little bridge, Rainbow Bridge, whatever. I was focused on him. I was very afraid of that person.
Did you ever say to an officer,
So again, we know why the defense asked all the questions there, because he said he was afraid of that person. And that's why he doesn't remember anything with the police, I guess. Some of this I get, some of it I think is tough. Seeking Facts said these kids tormented the man from the moment they encountered him. They all lied about the little girls to justify the name calling. I'll be floored if the jury finds him guilty. Rashenda Reynosa, doesn't this make you want to do a members only live on the rafting trip? Anything but that. It's like going to scar me. I'm never going to want to go on a rafting trip again. I'm definitely never going to talk to anybody I see on a rafting trip. I mean, it is wild out there that this stuff happens. It is so sad and so wild that this stuff happens. Bugs, I see self-defense in the video, but what he did after is what will get him. At the same time, shock can cause you to do some odd things. Not guilty. And that's going to be, I mean, I really think that the discussions we are having, the stuff we are pointing out here in this video, in this live, is exactly what the jury is going to be discussing back and forth. It's going to be the difficult parts that they're going to need to get through.
hey, there's a guy over there with a bat and that's concerning me. Can you do something about it?
No.
You're put into a squad car, right?
Mhm.
But yes,
Yes.
Sheriff Knudsen came over to make sure you were comfortable, right?
I saw that in the video. Yes.
You don't remember talking to Sheriff Knudsen?
No.
You remember him asking you, well, if you don't remember, you don't remember. We're going to play that video and then I have some questions for you. Your Honor, this is the longer version of the video that's been
Still doing all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's going on?
Temperature's okay here? Okay.
I hear somebody got stabbed, and I fit the description.
Yes, you do.
All right.
Yeah. So we're working through that now. Did you see that fight on the river?
I heard about it.
You heard about it?
Yeah, and I seen people gather around it.
Okay.
Heard about what happened. This is right after. Okay. And he doesn't remember this. He doesn't remember this at all. And that's the bad stuff, right? Because if I'm a sarcastic juror, I'm like, how the heck is this guy saying he doesn't even remember this conversation? And we already know that he said, I heard somebody was stabbed and I match the description, but there's more than that. This is the longer interview where he acts like he has no clue really what was going on and definitely wasn't involved.
All right. And I went over to talk to see if somebody saw anything, but that's about it.
Okay.
Our whole group was pretty interested in finding out what happened.
Okay.
The whole group was interested in finding out what happened. He went over to try to figure out what happened. That's it.
That's your whole group over there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know. Okay. Well,
Did you see anybody injured?
no.
You didn't see anybody injured?
No.
Did you see anybody fighting?
I heard people screaming at each other. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Screaming in anger or screaming in pain? Do you know?
Everybody's drunk, so I don't know. I can't tell the difference, but I would say I don't know, screaming. You know?
What did he think was going to happen? I get that you didn't know there was a video, but you're in handcuffs in the back of a police car and you match the description. Did you not think that they were going to find out you were involved? Now would have been a good time for talking to the cops anyways to be like, I acted in self-defense. This is the stuff that I think is going to be tough to get over that the jurors are really going to discuss back there. But as you can see from the chat, there's going to be a lot of people dug in thinking this was absolutely self-defense, which is going to make for really interesting discussions back there, kind of like 12 Angry Men. Linda Hale, if the jury is hung, can they retry the case? Yes. So a hung jury is not a not guilty verdict. It ends in a mistrial and they redo the whole thing.
Yeah, calling each other names. And it's seen that all day. And we've all been drinking a lot. I'm sure they're drunk. I'm sure they're doing kids being kids.
You're being kids. Where's your group from? Where did you drive from today?
I drove from Prior Lake.
From Prior Lake.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I didn't even drive it. We came here.
Your wife and you? And you met the group here?
Yeah, but we know.
Okay. All right. As long as the temperature's good, I'll check back with you in a minute, okay? Thank you.
You like Sheriff Knudsen, right?
I don't remember that conversation, but yes,
You
I
told him that you heard there was a stabbing, right?
I don't remember any of this stuff.
You're fishing for information about what happened, right?
I don't know what you could say. I was fishing. I don't know.
You asked him some questions about what had happened, right?
You were fishing for information, he says. Emma, Peter, do you think we'd have the same conversation or trial if Mew was a 50-something-year-old woman? I think it'd be a very different conversation, but I think we could still be here if she stabbed 5 kids. Yeah, I do. I mean, I think that's egregious and a horrible result that people are going to fight for justice and want justice if that happened. All right, John, put up our final poll. I gave you the 4 options before. Guilty of first degree, guilty of second degree, not guilty, hung jury. And we're going to vote on that. I realize there's more lesser included than second degree. And then I'll discuss kind of where I'm at right now. And we will see the rest of this cross-examination now while we get the vote results in.
Again, I don't remember this conversation.
If you were pretending that you didn't know what happened. Is that true?
No.
At the point that you were talking to Sheriff Knutson and saying these things, you didn't know there was a video of what happened on the river, did you?
I didn't know whether I was dead or alive at that point.
You also didn't know that there was a video, right?
No.
When the sheriff asked you what had happened, one of your responses was it was kids being kids, right?
I don't remember any of that conversation.
You just heard yourself say it on the video, though.
So
Objection, no foundation.
I'll move on. Prior to being taken to jail, you were transferred from that squad car that you were into a different squad car, right? Remember that? You remember at some point Deputy Thomason telling you that you were under arrest for homicide and attempted homicide?
I don't remember any of that.
When you spoke with Lieutenant Hart, even though you'd been informed that you were being arrested for homicide, you pretended to know that, to not be aware that someone had died, right? Right? When you're talking to Lieutenant Hart, you
Talking about the stuff he was not honest about. Lucia, no, it doesn't mean he goes free. It means they try the case again and he's still held in custody. Greg Hall, way past. I am fading now. We're almost done.
Over here at the jail?
Yeah.
I don't remember any of that conversation.
you don't recall pretending to not be aware that someone had died.
Objection to the fact.
Sustained.
When you're talking to Lieutenant Hart, that was about 4 hours after you'd been arrested, right?
Yeah, that's what I learned.
And said you had time to put together a story, right?
No,
You had 4 hours to come up with a story about what happened on the river before you were interviewed by Lieutenant Hart, right?
No.
You didn't have that time.
I didn't put a story together.
So when you told her,
But like you literally lied a ton through that story and even admitted you lied. That's the problem. That's the problem with him testifying and that video being so bad is you got to deal with this question. You got to have an answer. He should have said, I was scared. So yeah, I was trying to talk my way out of it or something. I mean, you just got to admit, you already admitted you lied and there was tons of lies in there. I would have gone through them piece by piece with him.
there were things like 2 of these boys pulled knives on me.
And he does go through some of them now, but man, would I have gone in excruciating detail. I might have played it for him and gone through it.
Telling the truth?
No,
That was a story, right?
correct.
And when you said that you somehow managed to grab one of the boys' arms and bend their wrist back and stab him with their own knife, that's a story you made up, right?
I told her what I remembered.
You remember doing that?
No, everything I told her is what I remembered at that time.
At the time you told her these things, you thought that you would grab someone's arm and stab them with their own knife.
As you can see, I was very confused.
Did you not testify earlier that you lied about the knife
That I did.
and that nobody else had a knife on the river except for you?
That I lied about the knife.
So it's impossible then for you to have twisted someone's arm and stabbed them with their own knife, right?
I saw the video.
No, I'm asking what you said to Lieutenant Hart.
I don't remember the interview, but I saw the video. And
You're aware.
And to not remember an interview that you just made up all sorts of things on. And that's tough. It's really tough look.
I know that it's not right. It's not true.
Not just a couple of little lies, but lie on top of lie to Lieutenant Hart, right?
Argumentative.
Sustained.
Well, let's talk about some of the things you told her. You said, these boys took the goggles off my head and threw them down the river, right? You told her that,
If that's what the video recorded, yes.
right? You told her that these boys tried to pull down your shorts, right?
Did save this till the end, which I think was smart. He gave it about 15 minutes. I probably would have given it a lot more, but again, he is at least hitting it. And this is really strong evidence for the prosecution. Hey, I like this idea, the helpful stranger. Hit that like button since we're staying up late and going long.
That's what I saw in the video, but I don't remember the interview.
That's a detail you added for your benefit, right?
No.
You said these boys attacked you, right? You told her that multiple times, right?
I saw the video.
Did you say that or not? Yes
I
or no?
said that in the video. Yes.
And you knew that wasn't true, right?
So in the video, I lied. I totally lied about the knife. I didn't remember a lot of details. I didn't remember of anything. I don't even remember the interview. I just looking at the video. It's I can look at it like anybody would look at it for the first time. I don't remember any of that.
You told Lieutenant Hart that these boys told you, don't run away from us. Remember saying that?
No,
In fact, it's just the opposite. They were telling you to go, right?
I don't remember.
You told her that a second boy had a knife, attacked you with a knife, and you took that from him, right?
That's what I saw in the video.
That's not true either, right?
When he's saying that's what I saw in the video, he means the video of the interrogation, not the video of the altercation.
Right?
That's not true.
He's admitting here he lied over and over again. You guys remember that interview?
You said that when you walked back to your group, and this is talking to Lieutenant Hart, that Ernesto asked you if you had found the phone, right? You remember saying that to her?
I don't remember any of that conversation I had with her.
Yeah, that wasn't true either, right?
If this is all part of that interview, I don't remember anything.
Yeah,
So
that's what we're talking about. We're talking
Right.
about the interview with Lieutenant Hart.
then I don't remember the interview.
Okay, I still get to ask you questions about
Sure.
it.
I mean, just to say you don't remember it as if you get to move on is wild to me. Really, really wild to me. Lucia, can the kids be found guilty for instigating if they would have been charged and, with assault of some sort, or even technically it could be felony murder because somebody died in the commission of a felony because it was battery, but it's not going to happen.
You were specifically asked, did you have a knife, right? You remember being asked that.
I don't remember that, but I know I was.
Your answer to Lieutenant Hart was no, no, absolutely no, right?
Right. Which I lied. I know I lied about the knife.
You said to her,
Pretty sure, based on your testimony today, you lied about a lot more than that. Veronica L., thank you so much. Pumped you're here.
did they want to scare me with a knife, right? Talking about the boys, I mean, the 17-year-olds. Well, none of them ever had a knife, right? Is that right?
Apparently not.
You said I grabbed it, meaning the knife, from him because he tried to poke me with it. Do you remember saying that?
Nope.
You said a woman hit you in the ear. Do you remember saying that?
Nope.
You know that's not true, right?
Objection, foundation.
You know that's not true as you sit here now, right?
Right.
You told the police and Lieutenant Hart, I think, that you thought it was two different groups of people fighting against each other, right?
I don't remember telling her that.
Right. You know, as you sit here today, that's completely made up, right?
Again, I don't remember any of that you're talking about right now. If it's
So-
about the interview,
You told Lieutenant Hart that you wanted to stay in the area and watch the police come and arrest these people for fighting, right? That's what you told Lieutenant Hart.
that's what's in the transcript. Yes.
When you were told that a person had died, your response was, is it because they fought each other? That's what you told her, right? That's how you responded?
If it's in the transcript,
The transcript is really not good for you. Kitty Gatto, I mean, this is kind of the part where it makes you think, no, it wasn't a good idea that he testified, but I understand why they thought he needed to, and I feel like I probably would have taken the risk as well. Sandy D, he only has two options. Either he admits to all these falsehoods or claims amnesia. He picked the lesser of the two evils, but it won't help. Yeah, it's tough. There's no easy answer there. No easy answer there.
but I don't remember.
You never told Lieutenant Hart that you punched or pushed or did anything to Maddie Cohen, right? You left that part out?
Is that what it's in there?
I'm
Then
asking if you ever told her that.
I don't remember.
He doesn't remember, even though he said it and they just watched the video. Yes, Maria. Good idea. 5,000 more likes. Right now, so we were like completely split on the last poll after direct, guilty, not guilty. Now it's 56% say some form of guilty, the vast majority, 41% in second degree, 33% not guilty, 11% hung jury. So still split, but after cross, a good chunk of people have gone over to the guilty side.
You didn't mention that you had stabbed and severely injured another woman, Riley Madison. You didn't mention that to Lieutenant Hart, right?
Objection, form.
You never mentioned that part.
I don't remember.
You didn't mention being strangled at any point, right?
If that's the transcript, then that we go by that. But I don't remember that interview.
And I think what you said earlier is that you were afraid you were going to die from being strangled, and that's why you stabbed Isaac Schumann in the heart, right? That was your testimony earlier. Didn't you say that today, this afternoon here in court?
Yes.
That's not anything you mentioned to any police officer, right?
If I didn't mention, I didn't mention it. I don't remember that.
That's not an important detail that you thought you might want to point out.
Everything is every detail is important. We all know that. But I don't remember saying any of those things to Lieutenant Hart.
Because you didn't say them, right? That's why you don't remember.
Is what?
You didn't say those things to her. That's why you don't remember, correct?
I don't remember what I said or what I didn't say to her. I don't remember even having an interview with her.
So you can't remember anything about what you told her, but when Mr.
Using some tricks, even throwing some stuff that he didn't say in there, saying that he did say them. Because his story was, I'm going to say I don't remember.
Nelson's asking you questions, you can remember all these feelings you had at the time. Is that true? You remember answering his questions about how you were feeling that day?
The feelings I had when I was attacked.
And when you were meeting with the Lieutenant Hart? Yes. You testified today a lot about remembering what you were feeling that day, right? When Mr. Nelson was questioning you, right?
Mhm.
So yes?
Yes.
But when you're asked other details that might not be so useful, you don't remember them, right?
Certain feelings and certain, they stick to you forever.
When
They
they're
affect
helpful to your defense, those stick to you, right? You were examined by the jail nurse, the SART nurse, several hours after the incident, right?
Yes.
You never mentioned to her that you'd been strangled, right?
Didn't mention to her a lot,
Sure.
not because I intentionally didn't want to do it. I didn't remember. I was still in shock.
You didn't mention anything about your throat hurting.
I don't remember what I mentioned to her.
I understand. You never, at any point, told anybody, other than today, that you had a sore throat or your throat was sore from after this incident, right?
I didn't tell anybody.
At any point during the day after you were arrested, when you're interviewed with people, when the jail or the SART nurse is talking to you, you never once said, "Oh, my throat is sore because Isaac Schumann strangled me," right?
I don't remember what I told those guys either. Like I said, I don't remember lots of the interaction I had with anybody here at the jail.
But today,
Yeah.
almost 2 years later, you remember that the next day your throat hurt.
Yes,
You
because
testified.
yeah, and my back.
You
still
can
have-
remember that detail, but not the other details.
My back still hurts right now.
The SART nurse specifically asked you when she was doing the exam, where you hurt, and you pointed out some things to her, right?
I may have.
Yeah, but you never once said, "I had been strangled. I have an injury to my throat hurts," nothing like that.
I don't remember.
When she asked you what hurt, you said your butt hurt from the rocks. That was your response to the nurse, right?
Don't remember.
You had said that you're in poor health, or you were at least.
Not really sure how well I don't remember works this often, right? It's one of those, like when this happens to me in a deposition and I read through, you said you don't remember 137 times in 58 pages or whatever it is. At some point, I don't remember does get used against you.
In poor health back on July 30th of 2022. You had your bypass surgery 2 years prior to that, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
And typically people that have medical procedures like that are given restrictions on what they can do in their activities, right?
Yeah.
And you apparently weren't restricted from swimming, snorkeling, doing outdoor sports on a river, right?
I was for a while, but 2 years later, lots of the restrictions, I believe, got lifted.
Those restrictions got lifted because you got better, right?
You can say the doctor makes that decision, but he says if you feel a little better, do as much as you can.
Yeah, and then you were in fact snorkeling and swimming and doing things that day, physical activities, right?
Snorkeling in 15 inches of water. I was mostly I didn't even snorkel. That was not a lake but I was my whole plan for the day was to just float down the river and relax.
You're able to run, at least you were back on July 30th of 2022, right?
Run.
You were able to run at that time, right? You weren't restricted from running.
I mean,
You didn't have a medical restriction to keep you from running, right?
no.
And in fact, you did run when you ran up on Isaac Schumann's group, correct?
You call that run? Okay.
Somebody said, sorry, the chat's kind of flying. Seashell said, throat hurt is pathetic. I do think it's kind of weird. It's like, I get that you got hit in the throat and stuff, but you're saying it hurt so bad, even though you didn't tell the nurse about it and stuff. It's like when you exaggerate those things, you can still be in fear and not have gotten injured at the end, right? That's part of it. So pressing sometimes can really get you into trouble. And Debbie J, thank you for being here as well. Appreciate everything you added to this conversation.
That's not a run, but I wasn't running. I wasn't allowed to run or do any activities like that, so I wasn't running.
At the time that this all happened, July 30th, 2022, you felt sufficiently healthy to go off on your own, away from your wife and your group, to go do snorkeling on your own, right?
That's what I felt.
I just want to check my notes. I think I'm almost done. We can have Exhibit 4, Item 10. I'm going to ask Investigator Schultz to actually handle it since it's evidence, physical evidence.
Can you retrieve the exhibit? Oh, what is it?
Yes.
That's the knife you used to stab these people.
They confirm that. We're almost done.
I asked you earlier about when you stabbed Dante Carlson. You agreed that he was not attacking you at the point that you stabbed him. He was the last person stabbed, right?
He attacked me.
Earlier, when you stabbed him, Tony Carlson had already broke up the fight, right? You said you agreed to that earlier.
At that time, everybody that came in contact with me attacked me.
Anybody who looked at you?
I think that's how he has to answer it. And Jerry, I think this is a good point. And it's like, you got to eat it. You got to own it. You got to deal with it. I don't know that there is another answer, right? Jason asked, how would you advise your client to answer these questions on cross? I think I would have said, I made up a story because I was literally freaking out. They had already arrested me. It was self-defense. I knew they weren't going to listen to me. So I tried to create some other story that would make them let me go. I was freaking out. I've never been in jail before. That's probably, if it's true, of course, right? I'm not going to tell a client to lie, but if that's what they tell me, that's like, they tell this huge convoluted story and you help them pare it down into a story that kind of makes sense and is not word vomit. But what Jerry said does make a lot of sense in conjunction with how you deal with such a horrible interview filled with lies and inconsistencies. And it's not easy, and there's no perfect solution, and there's no way the jury's like, I really like that guy after you answer questions like this.
No, anybody that came in contact with me, I felt attacked.
You felt attacked whether you're being physically attacked or not, right?
I was in the moment, so I felt attacked by anybody that had either previously attacked me or was approaching to attack me.
So you felt like you could stab folks who were not attacking you at the moment that you stabbed them. You walked up to Dante Carlson and stabbed him in the belly, right?
I did not walk up to Dante Carlson and stab him in the belly.
I don't have any other questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Nelson?
And again, not a great end there. Not a great end to end on that. Speed guy, doesn't first degree require premeditation and motive? No, you never have to prove motive. But intentional homicide, premeditation can be a very short period of time. Again, touching his knife, things like that. Who here has never told a lie? People live out stress and fear. Mother Toast, will you be making more videos on what's happening in Delphi? Yes, eventually. I know so much is going on. I really appreciate your content, especially the videos you do with your dad. I appreciate that so much. Yeah, we've got Crumbly Sensing today, so that's kind of done. We've got this case. We've got Chad Daybell's case starting tomorrow. We got Brian Koberger hearing coming up. So there's just so much going on at once. And then, of course, work and family and life. So, yes, I will get to as much as I possibly can. I have to get out of here now. Seeking Facts. He's not the only one with false statements and amnesia. That's true. They wanted him to go, but that video paints a different story. They were having way too much fun. Yeah, I think there's some untruths said by both parties on both sides. All right, that's all I got. I got to get out of here. I'm starving. I have to go to the bathroom. I have to go to bed. You guys are the best. On redirect, by the way, they did come say, like, really? You want to pick a fight with all these kids? I appreciate you guys so much for joining me and hanging for almost 3 hours. That's a long one for me. Hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. I appreciate everybody that joined me today and that added to this conversation. Till next time, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast with new seasons dropping every quarter. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, the lawyer you know.